What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of HLTV Confirmed. My name is James Banks. I'm your 8-bit host with the terrible webcam, and I'm joined by Chad SPUNJ Burchill, Mr. Striker himself, and the Professor, both from HLTV, and we're here to talk things all Counter-Strike all day long, well, all evening long. And three of us are actually here at the Minors out in Poland. It's been a little bit of a race to get here, but how is everyone feeling? Professor, you're probably in the best scenario because you're at home chilling.
Yeah, not bad. Chilling at home the whole day, even though kind of hyped to get back into the everything. I don't know, seeing all the pictures, everyone's at the minor, kind of feeling a bit jelly, I must say.
Everyone else chilling.
Jealous. It's really cold outside. It's probably too cold outside.
It's really bad weather. Like there's been a snowstorm basically. Like when I passed the border from Czech Republic to Poland because I drove here, it's like snowstorm all over the place. And it's just like maybe like whatever 5 inches of snow or something outside, so it's not that great.
I spoke to the taxi driver last night. He said that like a couple of hours before I landed, there was a snowstorm, and it took him 4 hours to get from the airport to Katowice. And I was like, wow, probably fucked that one. So but yeah, at least we're gonna have Counter-Strike here, so that's good. And shitty sparkling water. So thanks to Eastern Europe for that one.
That is not a fan of that lovely sparkling water. It's not a usual taste for us at all. But to get on to our first topic of today, and one which has been, I guess it's quite a long-term controversial subject, right? It's the major rule set and kind of where Valve is at with it. And start with the whole issue with Pro 100 having a player that ended up being in hospital of all things, and even then, despite proof, despite him being in a bad way, they were like, nope, you got to play with your roster you have to just deal with it, you have to kind of take it. Do we think these kind of things now need to change? Are we at a stage where, look, we can trust these players and teams, and it's like, okay, look, we can work with this? Or is this more of a room to be saying like, okay, they need to have more backup players potentially?
I mean, there's not even a chance for them to have backup players because of how the rules are basically set up. You can see that you basically have 5 players, and the coach is now considered not now. It's just been always considered like the 6th player. So that like just doesn't make sense altogether. Even if they had backup players, like look at Space Soldiers and what happened to them last time with Hardstyle. They technically had a backup player. They had a 6th player, but they couldn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Despa is like their 6th player.
Yeah, exactly. Despa is their 6th player, and they couldn't use him because he wasn't even on the roster, because he couldn't have been on the roster because the 6th spot is used for a coach. So just everything altogether doesn't make sense. So whatever the teams do, like whenever they get one of these emergencies, they just have to use a coach that most of the time doesn't even play CS or hasn't even played CS for that long.
Or right, you have to do what Cloud9 has done right now, which is where it becomes like so.
I mean, just that the thing that you're actually using it the wrong way, kind of, to make it work is just insane to me. Like you have to abuse the coach slot to make it like the sub spot to actually use the sub, which is weird.
Which is then detracting from the coaching position, right? Which is like another conversation in itself. But I think the Cloud9 one really points out the flaw. Like obviously we have known the flaw for a very long time. We've seen it crop up time and time again. But this is where like I think about solutions, and I don't know how lax we get. Like I'm a stickler for the rules. I live in Germany, so I kind of love them over there. But the thing is, I don't know what the best solution would be, because we do run an open circuit, right? So the whole thing with this open circuit situation is we're not bound by a season or anything along those lines. And it's just a shame when we get to the biggest and best tournament, or one of the 2 biggest and best tournaments of the year, that we get hampered with issues off the bat, and we have to find workarounds, or teams just get fucked because of it. And that's nobody wants that. I'm sure Valve doesn't want that either. I'm just trying to think like if there is a solution to that kind of problem.
I mean, for me, just for the major, if we're talking about the major, if they just make a separate slot for like a coach and another slot for a stand-in / sub player or something like that, so you can actually, even if it is like, I don't know, like 30 days ahead, the deadline or something like that it is now, at least you can pick someone that actually plays the game, that didn't qualify, maybe someone that played, I don't know, who's just like an FPL star or just someone that actually plays the game. So if 15 days before the event something happens to a player, you don't have to use a coach. I think that would be an easy upgrade on what we have now. I mean, I don't see like what's the potential downside of that.
I think
the downside could be the kind of issues if you look at teams and getting a player to stay there quite regularly, right? You end up in a position where a player goes, "Oh, I don't want to sit here in the sixth role for too long." How do you keep someone who wants to be competitively hungry?
I think that doesn't even need to be. I mean, this is one of those topics that we're going to get to later, so we're a little bit jumping ahead here. But generally, what I think the problem from Valve's point of view could be is just the majority rule in general, that basically you have to keep 3 out of 5 players. I mean, obviously what Cloud9 did kind of works around that, but just as a general rule, you have to keep 3 out of 5 players from the previous major to retain your spot, right? And I guess I'm not sure that's what Valve's issue is, but that's basically the only thing that I can come up with that they could be having a problem with. Maybe like working around it, trying to figure out a way to like include more backup players or like another backup player instead of a coach, and still keep this rule working as it should be. Like for people not to, or for teams not to try to work around it in some way and just like end up having like 1 out of 5 at the
just like a free transfer in a way. So what you're saying, trying to say, let's say someone has 3 out of 5 from the last major, and then they just like use the sub for one of those 3 out of 5. That's exactly kind of abuse of the rule.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, but you'll probably find ways to work around that though, like so that teams can't abuse this kind of rule. And like Valve have actually not even done anything about it when it comes to the coaches, right? Obviously, Cloud9 can do it. So, and we've known about this for maybe, what is it? Maybe like 2 years? Yeah, but it was 2 years when before the 2017 E-League major, it was when Kerrigan was kicked from Astralis. And they also removed KGB, and who am I missing? They only had 2 out of 5. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, Zonic was standing in. That's what the problem was. Zonic was standing in, so that's in Cologne. So they basically had only 2 out of 5, and they had to add Glaive. Well, not had to, but and they ended up adding Glaive, which made it 3 out of 5 because he also played in Cologne. But there was the option of just basically having Zonic be a part of the main lineup, and then just like swapping him in for the 6th player who's normally used as a coach, right? So this is what's happening with Cloud9 right now.
I mean, I think back then we even had like an article on that, just like I think you did it, outlining all of the possibilities that Astralis had. I mean, people don't remember it now, but it was kind of a clusterfuck because they had Glaive standing in and Zonic coming in for Dupree, who had like the whatever it was that happened like during the event. So that complicated everything. But yeah, so I just Cloud9 literally just used that article or everything that was outlined there and just used it for their case right now. So that's kind of funny. But just going back to the kind of the abuse of the rule, I feel like if you just made it that you still need to have 3 out of 5. So the original core needs to stay there, and you can only switch someone that isn't the original core, so you still have the 3 out of 5, so you can switch the 4th to the 5th. I think that could work, and that could help. And like one of the cases was Tyloo. I don't remember who it was, but someone had a visa issue. Then they had to put in Peacemaker, but the Peacemaker didn't want to play, and then they didn't play at all.
Yeah.
So in that case, they could just use one stand-in, and it will help them massively, and it wouldn't be abuse of the rule. Same as with the Space Soldiers situation, it wouldn't be abuse of the rule because they had 5 players, they replaced 1. So I think most of the cases they only need like 1, and they still have the majority. So I don't know. I think it would help like 80% of the cases, and I think that would be a decent upgrade and a very simple one to do.
So this is where like other things come into question though, right? Like I think that there's a lot of players out there, well, not a lot. I think a lot is probably a bit of an overstatement, but there are probably a handful of players out there who are happy or would be happy with that kind of a role. Like you could look at streamers, for example, who are maybe recently retired pros, or people who play in teams just for fun but can compete at the highest level. Those would make very good 6th. Like you have like Pimp, for example, who plays a lot. Obviously Denmark streams a lot, and he was a professional player. Yeah, exactly. And he's it feels like nothing's doing that at the moment for Complexity, right? Because it's being touted as a temporary thing. So like the solution for those kind of things, it's probably good for some teams, not good for other teams. But I'm just curious, like I can see, you can look at all these different rules that Valve have in place, right? And the thing is, I think that they're learning with us. And I know this seems like, because we to be honest, like sometimes we're probably a bit harsh and critical of Valve. But I think like these discussions that we're having here and that the community have, as we learn and we find out where we're kind of showing them all the different options and they don't have to think about it. So it's kind of good that we're having these conversations. It just sucks that we're fixing it a baby step at a time. That's what it feels like, because there have been good updates, right? Like the minor system this time around, the fact that there's no grand final, right? We just play that upper bracket final, and that's great. Like that's a fucking great change. And whether that's being pushed by ESL or Valve have realized that themselves, we don't know where that comes into it. But the fact is, there have been good changes. It just feels like this roster one, and it's not just the majors, right? Like I know people are critical as well with online seasons with certain teams and rosters not being able to be changed, or it feels like we haven't found the perfect solution yet. And I don't know if we ever will when it's completely open circuit like this, but I hope that we can come to something so we never have like that space soldier situation again, right? Like this situation right now with Cloud9, it hasn't happened quickly. It's something which could have probably been amended over a long period of time. And it feels like right now, Valve are either just going, well, you know, it's in the rules, even though they are technically, the way I'm looking at it, bending, or the intention of that rule is being not exploited, but used to the fullest of its potential. Maybe they're just looking to see how that kind of pans out, but it means that they won't have a coach standing behind them, right? Like, that's a huge loss to have for a team that is, I guess, going to be a mix at best, right? I don't expect the Zealous to stay in the team for an extended period of time. So I think it's just a mess, but you guys are obviously giving good solutions to how we can avoid it long term. Just which one they land on or how long it takes them, that's the problem, because we really have no say. It just sucks. Like, feel powerless.
Do you actually think it's like an abuse of the rule? Or do you feel like this is what Valve is kind of what they intended with it?
I don't think so at all.
Do you think it's not, or it is?
I don't think that this is the intention for the rule. I think that the way that they have the rule structured in the first place is just like, it's shit. Like the way that you address the fact that the coach has to be the sixth man as well. Like I think that as the concept is the problem, right? If we could move past that and have exactly what you suggested in place, but then that's when you're going to have to make sure like certain, I don't know, there's a shitload of players out there, so people are just going to have to settle for a sixth who didn't play in any phase of the minor, right, or didn't overlap in any of those rules that we have now, whereas if you played in this portion of the qualification process, you can't play for another team here, or here. However that works, like, there's a shitload of players out there. It's just like, at what point do we draw that line? How do we define it? I think there is a solution there, but like I said, I think from at least my talking to them, they like these discussions. They like people having big chats on Reddit about bits and pieces, bugs and this and that, and people not doing their work for them, even though sometimes that's what's being done with these bug cases, like within the game, but giving them the perspective of the internet, basically. And that's like the best thing about the internet. I'm kind of going on a tangent and I'll get real philosophical about why it's a great place, but the point is, I think we're doing a massive service by having these conversations, and I've just done a full loop in my points. Next person.
I just wanted to say, like, my feeling about how Valve approach the coaches, it seems like almost they don't like what they did with it. Like, at one point they had like all of this, they could talk during the matches, they were legit the sixth person, then they like pulled back on it. It feels like this is kind of just the following of that, Valve not really wanting coaches to be like a full thing, so they're kind of, it's a coach but also a sixth player / a sub. So that's like all in one. Like, who cares about coaches anyway? We don't want them to have like a big role in the game. So this works perfectly. I think that's the main issue behind the whole thing.
The thing with at least from my conversations with Valve, and albeit I didn't have any with them at the Faceit major, but in previous majors that I attended when I've spoken to them, the kind of picture I got about the coaches was that they wanted the people watching the game, because the major, to us, we look at it as the world championship of CSGO. It's the biggest tournament. It proves, like, we all have put it in the highest regard, right? The thing for Valve is, at least my understanding of the words coming out of some of the devs' mouths, is that it is a showcase of their game on a global scale. That's why they want as many regions activated as humanly possible. And they want the people who are watching maybe for the first time, you know, like if we're taking a tactical pause every round, or the coach becomes the in-game leader, I think they didn't want people to think that, like, as much as I think that's probably a good progression for the game, for the quality to get better and better, I think that's not something that they want, because that's not achievable for everybody playing matchmaking. Now, I don't want to put words in mouths. This is my interpretation of conversations that I had. So I could be completely off there. So I think that you're right in a way that it's like they don't want the coaching position to be so overbearing. But I definitely think that they see the benefit of the coach. It just kind of sucks that you can have a coach of a team who obviously brings a lot to a squad. Obviously, Zeus and Zonic are two of the best examples of that in recent history. And then they go into majors and they're contributing and they're working like dogs, and they're not getting the same level of recognition as the players. Now, I know the players are the ones actually doing the hard work, but what's an extra sticker in the game and that kind of stuff, right? It doesn't feel like that much of an extra step in that direction. Like, it doesn't feel like it has any negative consequences.
Nothing at all. And it's in the chat, some of the things being thrown out here as well is like subs per map, so players that you could change out because maybe they feel better in a position or it works out. We got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the next topic we wanted to. It kind of links into this, I guess, like the whole sixth man discussion that happened the last few days. I mean, starting with the Xantares moving to big, and then people asked like, what's going to happen with Nyx? And Tabsen put out a tweet like, when he comes back, we'll have a 6-man roster. And I think that's the future of CS, something like so along those lines. And that kind of started the whole discussion of where that could lead and will that happen and stuff like that. So I'll just let someone pitch in with their ideas about it before Milan.
Just to note though, when you specifically mentioned Big, they actually did add Nyx as a coach. They have Nyx listed as a coach for the major, which is the interesting part. So it's not just talk from Legia or whoever put out that tweet. They actually do plan on switching them out, or potentially if it doesn't work out with Xantares, he's just going to come in instead of him. I'm not entirely sure what the plan is there, but they obviously didn't put in Legia himself, which is okay. Like we were talking about at the start, this is also a part of the problem. Now teams basically just remove coaches from the majors just so that they have like a certain backup or something like that. This may not be the same case. This may be just them not being entirely sure what's going to happen in a month and a half when they have to play a major, or well, obviously from the deadline anyway, it was a month and a half. Now it's about a month. So that's the interesting part about it. I'm not sure if it could work though.
Would it be simply that none of their coaches are that worthy, so they're like, I mean, that they're not that impactful in the game? I know that Legia is kind of coaching, then they switched to Kakafu for the last couple of events again. So it's something about them. Like, I don't think any of them are really in that fully coaching role. So they're like, let's just put in a player, so in case something gets fucked up, we'd rather have Nyx than Legia playing, which is a reasonable upgrade, I say, for anything.
Yeah, in that specific case, I think if anyone is going to try and pull that off, like in the theorized sense of we're going to change out players in the middle of the tournament, I don't know how the rules fare on that. It'd be cool to investigate.
You can do it once during the tournament. I think it doesn't matter when, but you can just do it once and you can't go back.
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay.
That sucks.
That
you need to be able to move.
Is ridiculous. What if, for example, that's where it just starts to infuriate me a little bit. Like, what if somebody gets rushed to hospital with a burst fucking appendix, and then they go and have surgery, and they're good like a day or two later to play the game, and then they can't because, like, what the fuck? Like, that just seems ridiculous.
That is also what happened with Space Soldiers. They had like one player with a visa issue, and they couldn't get him on the first day. So on the first day, they had to play the game, obviously. So they put in the coach, and as soon as they put in the coach, if the guy comes in the second day, he can't play. So there's no even point for him to try to get the visa at that point. So that is kind of retarded. So even imagine like Space Soldiers battling through the first stage with hardstyle, like against all odds, and they still can't get the guy in for the visa. Like if he got the visa, he can't fly in and play for the playoffs or something. So that's, I mean, I guess what they're trying to do with the rule is stop people from doing like next in for one map, and then for the next match they put in, I don't know, Tabsen, then they take out Smuya, then they put, I don't know, Tabsen back in, whatever. So they're trying to stop that. And I think, as you said earlier about they don't want like coaches to have too much impact, I don't think Valve will ever allow like 6-man rosters on the major. That will literally never happen. It just goes against
I'm just
the
wondering
idea.
why though. I mean, sure, but their problem was with the coaches was that they basically teams had 6 players doing something at the same time, right? Why I'm saying doing something is because obviously the coach isn't playing, but they just consider the coach as a player. But in this case, I'm not. They obviously, if you have a sub for a sixth man, like obviously you're not playing in six people. You just have the ability to switch one, right? So, but I'm just curious about why this would be a bad idea from a Valve's point of view or from anybody's point of view.
Actually, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is, if you're going back to the matchmaking example, this is like you have 5 friends, you play one map on matchmaking, then one guy needs to go, and you just like invite another friend, play another game of matchmaking.
Yeah,
so
okay.
in that way, it actually absolutely fits the Valve. So I was wrong, actually.
But it's just like, okay, from a completely theoretical point of view, right? Why do you guys think this is bad? Like, or rather, do you guys think this is bad to be able to sub in or to swap players like mid tournament? What's the downsides? What the upsides?
I am very reluctant with change of something which has been like this for a very long. It's hard for me to see a negative, because if you were to actually be able to play with a 6+, like let's say you had 8 players, we may as well, right? You may as well go insane. Like let's say you had 10 players. Let's say you had 2 rosters, right? You had I don't think Counter-Strike should ever be like NFL, where you can have an offensive and a defensive. I think that concept is ludicrous. In my mind, that's just, we may as well have special teams to come in on pistol rounds or fucking eco rounds or something ridiculous, right? Like, that's where I'm just going to sit and say, that's ridiculous. But in terms of having a 6th man where you can say, let's use Overpass as an example, and you really wanted to run a double AWP setup on Overpass and train, like those were your double AWPs, there were specialists, or like it was like a counter to a play style, and some, like, let's set a something like that, then okay, there's a little bit more tactfulness there. And the concept, this is the thing, the concept of all of this is great. The functionality becomes an issue, and then not only the functionality of it all, then you have to look at the state we're in right now, and you have to go, okay, if you're a player and you're good enough to be on a top 20 team in the world, are you happy with being a 6th man who may only get to play, and this is being generous, 50% of the matches? And then if you are happy with that, is an org willing to spend the money on you to be, so now you're not only paying for 5 players plus a coach, probably plus an analyst, probably plus a manager, now you're paying for 6 players, and salaries aren't cheap, we all know that. So those are the 2 hurdles, at least logistically, in modern Counter-Strike, of just mentality of the organization and the player. But then it becomes the functionality. I think the functionality, in the sense of the idea and the concept, it's possible. Do I like it? No, but I'm a grumpy old man, so I'm probably not the best person to comment. I think it's possible. I don't see why. I don't see the hurdles are definitely, you'd definitely be able to overcome them. But I don't know. I just fucking love Counter-Strike the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem is there's definitely in like chemistry stuff, just because like obviously if you can't really practice with like different players unless it's like different maps, I guess. Unless it's like set that you have this lineup on this map and this lineup on this map. Like I don't think you can effectively practice that way with more than 5 people. Like you're just gonna sacrifice some chemistry in order to get this 6th man into the lineup. Like I said, unless you have those rules that you literally just want him for this map or for these 2 maps, and he's gonna practice those 2 maps with you, and that guy's gonna sit on the bench for the time being. I mean, I agree with you that there's just like we've gotten used to CS being as it is, just like 5-man lineups all the time, no switches at any point. I don't think we've really seen that happen, like from the team's initiative. Like unless something like some kind of an emergency happened, this didn't really happen anywhere at any point. So I agree with that. Like this change would be a really big one, and it would also just make the game a little bit more random, right? Make it a lot harder for teams to prepare against each other if they didn't know what lineup was going to be used. Your rule sets would have to be put into place in how often you can change the lineup, if you can do it within a series and stuff like that. It would just bring a lot of confusion, I feel like, as well.
I feel like, I mean, let's say all of this which SPUNJ touched on, like the salaries, the logistical nightmare, everything is sorted. Even if all of that's like perfectly fine, teams nowadays, these teams that we have now, most of them can't play 7 maps with 5 players. The same 5 players on all the maps. mostly the same players have similar roles on on all maps. You have like on the T side, who's like lurking, who's going like take map patrol, who's doing like anchoring on CT side, who's doing like mid on CT side, who's doing more aggressive plays. Like all of it's kind of similar on most maps. It's not like, I don't know, Mirage is that much different from Dust 2 or something, but some like Big doesn't play Mirage, plays Dust 2. And how do you then like add in the factor of another player? I feel like that makes everything so much more complicated, that if teams can't play 7 maps with 5 players, they won't be able to play like 6 or 7 maps with 6, 7, 8 players. I think it's just like it will take so much more time for that to be effective. And it's just because CS is a game that has like communication and chemistry and these intangibles that are much more impactful than in like basketball or like even League of Legends or other. I mean, I'm not an expert in League of Legends, but like traditional sports don't rely that much on these things, I feel like.
Just that you touched on League of Legends, they actually did use that concept where they have subs for basically
they have
every role or something. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that they actually did it, and some teams actually did use it there. And you're right, like CS is just a very different game in comparison. Just a lot more communication based. Like in League of Legends, it's just like pings. Pings can go a long way in that game. So that's a big issue with CS, obviously. But the main problem with it is that like nobody would really want to play this role anyway, as SPUNJ said, just because we don't really have a season, right? We have an open circuit where it's also a really busy open circuit, so nobody would really commit to being a 6 player.
Who knows what happens?
There's no point
next
in
year. Maybe next year we have a closed season.
If we do actually have a season, then it's actually plausible. Just because, say you don't get drafted into one of those, let's say, top 20 teams, and you are a player that can perform up to that level, and you really don't want to just, I don't know, drift along with some top 30 team or something like that, then I can see you being a 6 player for like a phase or whatever if they come calling. But as long as you have those chances of making it into that closed circuit with whatever the top 16 teams or whatever it would be, then you would never do it, right?
It depends on like I guess your ambition and stuff. Oh, have we lost him? Have we lost me?
Oh no, we.
No,
never mind. I still lagged. It's all good. I was thinking that let's use E-United as a case study with an extra man on the roster, right? So we saw them play when they had Cooper coming in, but they hadn't worked out who they wanted to replace yet. They went into that tournament basically all wanting to play A grade CS so that they weren't the one getting replaced. I think the concept of having somebody on the bench who is a very good player who can take a spot at any point means that you're not going to have these muppets on your team anymore who are slacking off or who are really taking the piss a little bit in that sense. Or like maybe if I have a quarrel with my in-game leader or the guy I'm holding a bomb site with, I might actually fix it instead of being a little bitch about it because I'm going to get replaced by old mate Croman over there who's playing 12 hours of deathmatch a day and practicing every smoke grenade in the history of Counter-Strike. I got someone keeping me in check. So a 6th man, not only I think, can... Look, we don't play a game where there is as many injuries as traditional sports. But if you just go back over the last couple of years, the amount of players who have been rushed to hospital for something which is completely out of their control, the amount of players on the top of my head who have health issues which are chronic, and we travel a fuckload, so those health issues aren't getting any better. Having a 6th man, I don't mean in this. I mean more maybe in the sense of we were talking about with the major situation, not with the having him rotate in and out and playing in tournaments. You declare at the start of the tournament who your 5-man is going into this. If someone gets sick, if someone breaks an arm, if someone gets run over by a bus, your 6th man comes in then. I don't like it on the sense of having multiple different rotations within a tournament. I think it's great for a team environment in keeping everybody honest, but I don't see it being used in the sense of like the League of Legends where they can play their opening match with a certain 5 and change their 5 and then go back to the next 5 and then get bloody number 8 off. Overwatch League is the same thing, and that's why that's never going to be a good game to watch. Anyway, I think that there is definitely room to have that sixth player, and I think that there are a lot of names out there who would fit that role very well. There's so many like utility hybrid players out there who are entertaining, who can stream, make money for your organization, and be keeping the rest of your players on toe, and can step into that role if needed. So get fucking 6 players.
From that perspective, that I think would be a great bonus, like generally to all of the teams and to the quality of CS and to all of these like bitchy problems that teams/players have. That I think that would be great. And from this perspective of like Janko did the interview about like the FaceTime, you have nothing to do as a coach. I mean, you technically have, but in reality, there's nothing you can do if people don't want to listen to you. And this could be like using the bench is the ultimate traditional sport like authority thing for you as a coach. If you don't want to do this, and this, okay, you're benched. I'm getting this guy, even though he's maybe worse, but at least he'll listen to me. He'll do the things that need to be done. So for like a month, you're on the bench and this guy's playing. That would be sick from that perspective.
But it's still only going to happen when we get a closed circuit. Like it's only going to happen when we get a little bit less busy schedules where everybody has so many opportunities. Like you just won't get the players to stand in for you in that case. Like to have permanently on your roster, unless you have like somebody from an active team. But then there's just like it comes with a lot more issues. So it's just going to take the entire scene to I don't want to say evolve because I'm not entirely certain that that's a good thing, but just to move into that direction before that we can see any of this happening.
I think it could work personally. Like I see it working in any circuit or even just the current way we've got CS laid out at the moment. Just because I think there are some players that even though they may want to be on a main roster, right? They'd be quite happy playing that kind of role. Have the call up when needed. They'd obviously follow up what the team's doing tactically in terms of learning side of things, make sure they're up to date on it all. But then they're also another entity in building their own brand at the same right. Because one thing a lot of players also have to look at is what happens when they retire at the same time. I know that's like going a completely different direction on it, but it gives you a bit more of a full picture. They're not completely useless, which is, I think you said it, Chad, about having like the streamers potentially, if they're some of the ones who are more of the top level. I think they're the perfect idea for having a sixth player, because you're not going to get a young gun who is keen and like, say, a Broland, for example, who was obviously waiting for his call up and wants to be on a starting roster. You can use these other people in a lot more well-rounded way.
I mean, most of these like sub-top players are in like ESCA main, ESCA, MDL, whatever, and stuff like that. And these guys actually play more matches than the top tier CS guys. So they aren't going to be free to do stuff. But yeah, as you said, like as the players that SPUNJ mentioned are the perfect ones for this example.
Bondic had his little stint as a super sub as well. He was filling in for everyone at one point.
Yeah,
Bondic.
like what Fates is doing
Bondic.
now.
Yeah. Well, Fates is a better example for sure.
Both examples.
He's been fucking everywhere, Fates.
He's going back to China again.
Yeah, and now he's back in China as well. So
Why the
he's
fuck
he's
not?
just good for everybody.
The dumplings are real good.
You're a fan of China?
It's like money wise, it's probably like second best after North America as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like the rumor was that he's going with Freiburg over there, and I thought it was finally gonna happen. Like we're gonna have like these former stars gonna go to China, just like we had like in football happening all the time. But it didn't happen in the end. So, but it is gonna happen sooner or later. People just like that are way past their prime will be going there, and just to get like additional year of paycheck, and that's gonna be interesting.
Actually help the regions as well, help them level up a little bit further.
But we saw whatever, like look at DSN, right? He hasn't even been around in CSGO as a player, and he was with Boot. I'm not even sure if he's still with them, but
he's not with them anymore.
With Boot. He was with Boot until very recently, anyway.
What is he? He's doing something now. He's still in like esports CS.
He's involved. I think he's involved in Boot, but he's no longer the actual team coach.
He's not the coach. He's not the coach.
Yeah, but I mean, just like he's the perfect example, I guess. But it's obviously more of a coaching role, and we saw Rambo was with MVP, right, as well.
Yes.
So that's another one of those. Now he's back in North America, of course, but yeah, I why not, right? I could see that happening for sure.
Final thoughts
with like actual players rather than. I'm sorry.
I was just saying final thoughts just on this particular one for the 6-man rosters. What do we think needs to happen to like make that happen? What's the end point needed for us to go from where we are now?
I think we need like a lot more money for starters, as SPUNJ said, and then we also need less tournaments / actual matches played. I think that's when you compare that to like traditional sports where you have these like giant rosters, they have a lot more time to actually practice. To match is a lot larger, like the ratio. So at this point you're playing all the time, so you need like you're actually practicing through playing official matches all the time, and that is mega key. So you don't want to throw in random people in those matches. I think those two things.
I think it'll also take a couple of pioneers for this, for other people to start catching on. Let's say this big thing works, right? Let's say big, if it actually ends up being as they say it to be. Huh?
I said it won't. I'm literally.
But I mean, let's just assume, right? Let's just assume that they actually do try it out as they say they will. That they will swap out players depending on how they perform or whoever fits better. For like say from tournament to tournament. Let's say that happens, right? And it starts working out. Like I agree with you. I don't think it will, especially not in Big's case. But let's say another team does it and it actually does start working out, and they beat. They win a couple of tournaments on the back of it because nobody can prepare for them and everything. Just surprise a lot of teams, somehow get consistency by it, even though I don't see how. But let's say some of these teams actually turn up and then more people catch on. That's what it will take.
I don't have any thoughts because I just wanted to stay the same. I don't like change, even though my mother once said change is as good as a holiday. But let's just keep it the same.
+1.
We're a little bit split on it either way. Next thing,
I mean, I agree with the whole thing. I also don't think it'll ever work. So I think we're not even split. I think it's pretty clear.
Oh, okay, so you're okay. You're on their side as well. See,
I'm just theorizing.
I'm down for it. I think that there's potential for it just for stopping issues.
It'll be interesting for sure. I'd love to see it. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think it will work. I mean, in fact, I actually doubt it'll work. I'd be very, very surprised if it would. But I'd be interested to see it. Just to see how it works, just to see another new thing. Maybe see it fall, maybe not.
Tactical diversity.
Exactly.
All right, let's get on to the minors, where some of us are in Poland for already. We're going to start with the CIS minors and kind of where we think this one's going to go. It's a little bit more potentially clear-cut. There's some definitely upsets in there, but is it all about Avangar and Gambit? It's kind of the starting point for us here. Because obviously we spoke about last time on the first episode of Season 3, Windstrike in there as well, a team that we can't kind of ignore in it. The runtime team, it's a bit of a like bringing back old heads and trying to see if we can have some fun with it. Can we do anything there? What are you guys' thoughts going into this one?
For me, it's all about Simon.
We had some fun with that.
Smooth.
We had some fun with that during rehearsal today. That was an interesting one.
Are we calling him Simon or Seaman?
I think we'll call him Simon because Seaman has some.
I'll be busting up.
Yeah, I really struggle with semen in my mouth, so I think I managed to enunciating that time and time again.
Did you think you were like that, Chad?
Look, you got to try everything once. But look, I think that we touched on it last time. We did mention the two clear favorites, the Avangar and Gambit. The thing with this region is, to me, it's almost like Russia. When you look at it on Google Maps, half of it you can't see from the satellite. Now, it almost feels like that with the CIS Counter-Strike, that stuff's just going on. Like HLTV.org is obviously covering it, but you look one day and there's been like 700 tournaments, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? But these guys, obviously, like Pro 100 was doing a boot camp for a very extended period of time. Obviously, they had a player that was ill in hospital and was, potentially dying. But like they were doing like a boot camp in the lead into this, as you would hope to do. And I think that this is probably the most sporadic region when we actually get to main play. These guys, these teams are the ones which cause the most trouble for the names that we expect to do well, right? Like historically speaking, you've seen what Vegas Squadron can do, what the Windstrike roster, like those they're pulling out upsets. Obviously, the critique the format, all this kind of shit. But these are fraggers, right? They've demonstrated that from this region, the players are fraggers. They just fucking pop heads. Now, looking at this as an event itself, I with the opening matchups and the teams who are clearly experienced compared to others, without having seen them play against one another in many domestic rivalries on LAN, it's really difficult to just sit here and go, oh yeah, that's going to be a clear result. But look, with names like Bumla that you can't pronounce and Norbert with a 7, there you go. See, I did it wrong already. Lucky I'm not doing the CIS Minor. I'll be on the European one. But they saved me from that issue right there. But I think that it is going to be clear cut within the minor itself. There's 3 teams in my mind. Obviously, for people who don't know, 3 teams, 2 teams progress directly to the major, and 1 team progresses to that playoff. I think the 3 teams is going to be Avantgarde, Gamba, and Spirit. Like that to me, just feels right.
Yeah, I agree. Like talking about this Simon team though, like all of these teams have like something in them. All of these every team has some players that did something at some point. They're all kind of interesting in a way, but I'm really just interested in this Simon team. Number 1 is this Toric guy who's been playing in these random online teams at random times, always like semi-shady guys around him. Excited to see him on like a legit LAN. Same with this iDisbalance guy. Like all of them have these like people have been talking shit about them on forums, on Twitter, on whatever. I want to see them play on LAN. That'll be like, that's what I want to get from the CIS Minor. And of course, it's like always good fun with all these Russians. There's going to be some shit talking, I feel like. Maybe I don't know what the setup is though. I hope it's like the open one, right? The Katowice, whatever ESL arena over there. I think it could be like a good atmosphere as well.
Just a fun, well, it's not really a funny story, but Toric actually used to play in the Czech Republic 1.6, like, say, 2010 or something like that. They actually got banned by, like, cheat hunters. It was not like a VAC thing, because at the time, VAC didn't really work, right? Because it was really outdated. But he actually got banned on the Czech scene by cheat hunters, like, 10 years ago. I actually remember playing against him a couple of times.
Did you vote for him?
He was good at that. Yeah, I did. I saw the demos.
No, I just these are these kind of guys. Like most of the like top. If you're watching top scene, you probably never heard of them, don't know about them. But these players that have been playing like open qualifiers and stuff like that ran into guys like this a lot of times, and they want to see them fail pretty hard, definitely. So I'm just gonna be excited to see what happens actually.
Just quickly looking at some of these names and stuff, right? When I'm sitting here, Lollipop21K, which is a fantastic name, he was like picked up as like Blade's next prodigy kid, wasn't he? Right? Like I remember towards Flipside. Yeah, well, Flipside was like over there floundering in a puddle, like the fish dying. Right? He was like one of the last.
They're still doing that though.
Are they still alive?
Money, but that's kind of died off from that.
I mean, they didn't say anything, and Markelov is still technically on that roster, but everyone.
Okay.
Really?
Well, on
I'm
the
not
theme.
Sure if he is.
The theme of Flipside, there's a really important thing that clearly hasn't been addressed, and I'm not sure why HLTV didn't make a news post about this, because it's huge. Waylander apparently has dropped his Finnish flag and is now using the Russian flag on HLTV.org. I'm surprised we didn't get an official news article about this.
This is something that happened alongside with the WSG qualifiers or something like that. This is like a semi-known thing now that when you play a national competition for a country, then your flag changes automatically. It's not that you put in a request, we just force it, because if you play for a national team, then that's your nation.
That's not as exciting, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's not,
I like the conspiracy theory or something, but
there is like the Kucher change, like his flag changed from like Ukraine to Russia.
I mean, that's different, right?
And he lives in Crimea, and that was like the same.
Yeah, exactly.
That was like at that time, then that Russia actually invaded Crimea, so that was like a fun story. Yikes. I don't know the details. Don't know. I think this is also because of WSG, but it's just like funny coincidence that happened at the same time.
Yeah. That's exactly what happens. But okay, by the way, runtime, right? They're gonna get so destroyed. like.
You
Does
kind of
anybody
think
disagree
so, right?
though?
You got C's desperately
this...
trying to right now, like practice hardcore, right? You say he's got a point to prove.
But like
you bring Starix back from the dead, kind of thing, and then just throw together a bunch of the rest of them and say, okay, we're going to give this a go. It's I don't know, man.
My thinking is.
I must say, I feel mega bad for Seized. I feel like this guy got shafted really hard, and it wasn't his fault. Like
really,
the Navi team.
I agree.
The Navi team, they kicked Zeus, so Starix could be the coaching game leader. Yeah. 3 days later, Valve is like, no more coaching game leaders. And they're like, okay, what do we do now? Seized, you're calling. You're the smartest player here, whatever. You're the support player. You're going to be calling. And then this guy plays like shit because he's calling, and he's not a caller. And he wrecks his fucking career. Everyone thinks he's shit. They bench him, whatever. He goes to shitty teams, plays shitty roles, and just is not bad. And he's not good anymore. But I think in that Navi lineup with Zeus, with Guardian, I think he was great. He did good shit overall.
Yeah, I 100% agree with this. But like at this point, at this moment, he's obviously just nowhere, basically. Like obviously when you look at this team, that kind of tells you everything. But then let's look at the three main players, right? The three experienced players of this team. Starix, who hasn't really played professionally on a high level for a very, very long time.
I mean, he tried. He played with this.
I know, but I'm saying a high level, right? He played with Kick, or like, okay. So that's what I'm talking about, right? So Starix, he's basically out when it comes to firepower. Hooch, okay, he used to be better right now, probably not too much. Like when he was in Gambit, I actually really respected him for his leadership at that time, but obviously not much of a... I'm sorry? What did you say?
In 2016, that was...
Oh, yeah.
Just for people that are watching probably don't remember Hooch being in a team.
Yeah, exactly. Hooch, another one of those experienced players, right? He's been around forever, but firepower-wise, not too much to add as well, right? And Seized is the same thing. So, like, is Kalinka and Scooby, who are not proven players either, actually going to do enough damage to do anything in this minor, especially with how CIS teams just tend to run, and like playstyle wise being just very, very highly individualistic.
I mean, in theory, they could make the playoffs, and if they make the playoffs, they could reach like the third place. But that's in theory. Like that would require Seized to become a decent player again. And I mean, I didn't see them play. They didn't play anything as CIS teams do. They play the qualifier. Like, okay, we're qualified. Not playing a single like cup or anything from now until the LAN. So they're not playing anything, just practicing, and we have no idea if they're like any good at all. So, classic CIS.
That's exactly my point, right? So I don't think there's going to be enough firepower to do anything at this minor.
Mouse. I love this, like CIS teams, CIS names, best shit ever.
Yeah, but like I mean, at the same time, I'm kind of looking forward to see Kalinka, just because looking back from that Lithuanian scene when they all split up and Nuki and Esperanto got their chances elsewhere and stuff. So like that's one player I'm actually kind of looking forward to watching.
I'm curious.
So I'm gonna give them that.
I'm curious with the opinion of everybody on what they think about it's almost coming straight out of the player break into the biggest tournament, right? Like that's basically, obviously we have a lead-in. A lot of teams can practice before the main event, but the minor, for a lot of these names, is still one of the biggest points for them, especially when you consider the region we're talking about right now, because that's where the sticker money really, these teams probably aren't making the same level as a European or a North American squad, right? So for these guys, that sticker money means a lot more. And when you think about the importance of this, so I was just having a quick look. The last time that Gambit played a match together was last year, the 19th or 18th of December. The same thing can be said for that of Avantgarde. And then you look at Spirit, who I would put like probably in my mind coming in the top 3 at this event. They've actually been playing more recently this year. So as an overall topic with the minors, do you guys think, because inherently it must, this favors like the teams that we're not completely counting out, but the teams who we don't consider becoming that top 3, because right now it's hard to tell who's in form. We don't get to see the practice results of stuff. It's like all we know is that Spirit played on the 9th of January, right? Like that's it.
That is true.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, you would say like probably Gambit and Avantgarde that played more events, they need like some time off. So maybe they took time off like 2 weeks during the winter, Christmas, like their Christmas probably in this year. So they need probably started like the 7th or something. So yeah, in that way they'd have like a week of practice. So did they actually do that? Probably not, considering the minors here. So probably they just like skipped, like they had like 5 days off in the winter break and then played everything else. I think that's probably what they were forced to do. And I don't know how good it is, how bad it is. I guess if you want the major to be at a good place, then you need to have minors like this, or otherwise you'd have them like last year, and then that is kind of complicated.
Well, I mean, you could still have the major at in November and something, and then nothing really clashes with the break. You could have the major at either being the last event, or just be at the end of November, like brink of November, December, and then like two months before, like the month before, as it is now, would be the minors. So I feel like in that way it wouldn't clash. And the same thing you could do with how it actually used to be, right? When the major was like around July or at the end of June, and so the minors were maybe 2 months ahead of that time. I feel like that would have been the best, the ideal situation for the placement of the majors. But I mean, that's a different discussion, and we've actually talked about that on this show. Maybe before the last major, actually, or the Face It major, or during it, I'm not sure.
I'm totally out of it. I just saw.
No, I'm just saying this is a different discussion, though.
Yeah, I just saw Peter, our boss, chipping in and saying, "Why are we sleeping on Windstrike?"
I know what's up on the episode yesterday.
yesterday.
Last week, and everyone was like, "Oh no, probably not. Like we don't really know what we're going to see from him." But
I mean,
they've got a good.
I think we only just
guns.
Commented on the song like the last Christmas.
Don't try fucking back out of it. Don't try that.
Look, last week we were trying to not go too deep, remember, because we're going to talk about this in depth this time round. And if you look at Windstrike's roster, it is a nice kind of mix of players who, obviously we mentioned Flipside and we mentioned Waylander before, but World Data and Waylander have been playing together for quite an extended period of time now. And we obviously, I'm not going to try and say his name again. I have to do like fucking training for those kind of things.
It's pretty. I mean, it's like Cyrillic letters, so but it's Latin letters, but emulating Cyrillic letters, and it's retarded. But it's Boomic. It's not hard.
Okay, and then it's just quick, right? Yeah. So but we've obviously seen these guys play at the more recent majors, so that there is the talent there. But the question that I have no doubt that these guys could go into best of ones against good European teams or good North American teams, and they could definitely upset, right? For sure. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just the question mark of how they mingle in their own little ecosystem. And that's something that I'm not hugely well versed in, right? Like the CIS team that I watch the most is Na'Vi, and they fucking beat on all the teams in the world, right? Obviously, these kind of names, besides the Gambits and the Avantgardes sporadically, they're not at a lot of the tier 1 tournaments, right? And that's why I question. I think the potential for upset in the CIS Minor is probably the biggest. I think that if I look at Asia, it should be clear cut. Like in terms of the number 1 position, then number 2 is relatively wide open. If you look at the likes of North America, there's one good team in the whole event. If you look at the European one, obviously we have Mouse Sports all the way up the top, and then there's a couple of teams, just under there that are quite tied for the next few spots. But the CIS one, other than runtime, and the reason I think that we're being a bit more harsh or flippant with them is because it feels like for the lion's share of that roster, the players' time have come. Whereas with these other teams, there's so many names. Okay, Davkost, he's been playing for a long time, right? He played back in Flipside as well. He was actually, for those people who don't know, the replacement for Simple when Simple was banned, right? Yes. So I didn't want to put my foot in the mouth there and make it seem like Simple was, cheating or anything. It was just I don't know the entire situation inside and out, but they have Samdai Young, right? Who, in terms of an individual player, he's pretty good. I enjoy watching that guy play. So it's just what style of CS they're going to show up with. Because when I watch the CIS guys, it's the Mac-10 banana rushes. It's the stuff that is outside of the box, which is great because I like to see more diversity in Counter-Strike. But when you have 8 teams who are likely all going to do very similar things that are considered puggy or scrimmy, the pattern of Counter-Strike isn't there to identify in the same way when I'm more well-versed in watching the different metas unfolding within the top 10 teams in the world, right? So the only team, like I said, that I would probably sleep on completely would be that runtime roster. And even then, it's one of those things where anything can happen. The format's a bit more forgiving, I guess, though.
Yeah, I guess if they get away with like a best of one when they're moving to best of 3 and can try and push a little bit, potentially they have some chance. What about the Pro 100 lineup? They're actually now getting their full, well, the roster they wanted, like Kenzor's return to health. Is there any hope for them?
That's also like a big question mark. Like, how much did they actually get to practice then? Because if this guy was in the hospital for like a week, like the last week, which is like crunch time when you want to play like 7 scrims a day or whatever and deathmatch, he's probably not going to be in like peak form. Doesn't mean they can't do something, but seeing they were already, as SPUNJ said, like not the top 3 you would expect to go through, I think that would be like enough to say like they probably won't. Even though they have a decent, but it's just like CIS decent team. Like a lot of these teams, for me, are on the kind of same level, and that's it. So it should be like Gambit. I think actually Avantgarde will take this. I really feel like that.
Agree.
I don't know why.
I'm behind Avantgarde, Windstroke, man. I'm scared for Gambit now.
I mean, just look at
scared.
The thing is, like, we haven't heard anything from the Gambit camp like since whatever they've made a couple of changes, but like they haven't actually even played too much. So it's like we don't really know what's going to happen with that team. Like, they've just been plummeting.
Blade is a coach. Can Blade make it just like back to the major now as a coach? Can anything stop Blade from?
I mean, he was at a major.
Yeah. What?
He was at a major as a coach already.
Yeah, but I mean, he always gets to the major. That's the point. So he'll get there again.
I mean,
somehow.
He's already lost that streak though. Didn't he?
Yeah, at the last one. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
He did PGL Krakow, and then the Boston one he didn't go through.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he missed that one. But yeah, that's just one of those things. Like we saw them in Malta, and that was actually that was already with this roster, and they just lost
but Bondik was like a stand-in for Dima 6.
Oh yeah, that's right. At that time it was still a stand-in.
Yeah, but they still have like Mo calling or something. So I don't.
I mean, it's just like continuation of the same issues that they had before, right? It's just like nobody really can call. I don't know much about this Exile guy.
He started to look a lot better in Malta. He got more comfortable towards the end. He's just one to watch. I don't think he's going to stay on that roster for too long. He's got potential, but he's definitely with the right person in terms of Blade. I'm just for me, if he can do, if he's improved further upon what we saw in Malta, where he was actually looking like he was playing his role, he should be right, playing the star role kind of thing that they needed, the firepower in there. I think that might be their saving grace.
It was very loose for them, right? Because Bondik had to get rushed in. So for him to play what was probably one of his bigger or biggest LAN events, and playing with people who are all considered, players who have won a major in there, right? There's those factors, but you could definitely see. I hate the term, but you could definitely see the potential of him as an individual, and that's an exciting prospect. If, like Banks just said, Blade's able to work him into a role where he is very comfortable and can shine, right? I think that's a trump card for the likes of Gambit. But for whatever reason, I like the grindy style of Avantgarde. That's why I think that they will take it, right? Is they seem to, I don't want to say they rely, but like. Every time I watch one of their games, someone is doing something ridiculous. Like someone's winning multiple clutches, or like James going off with the AWP and just wrecking everybody. And I think that they have 5 players who they're not past their like. This isn't a team where I'm setting up going, well, you can see such and such and such and such. They bring experience in communication. These are guys who are all just just fucking fraggers. Like they've all come up. Like Fitch obviously had a bit of a little stint different to the others, but everybody feels like they're coming up together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, remember, like last time we actually saw them as one of the favorites as well, and they blew it pretty hard. Before the Face It major.
Yeah, I think probably they learned from that. But yeah, before we go to the EU minor, I just want SPUNJ to explain why he hates the word potential. I think there's
no, it's just because when you're on the analyst desk and like you're using that as a term to describe like every player that seems like they might be okay, it's like it's not concise analysis with the limited time that I have to talk, if that makes sense. I can't back it up. Whereas like right here we have an open forum where I can talk for as long as I want or until Lucas mutes me. But basically
hasn't happened yet.
But basically the reason in short form is because it's a word that without any backing is almost like bullshit, right? Like you're not actually giving any insight. You say, well, he's got potential. What the fuck does that mean? Whereas like when I'm using it in the context of the player we're talking about, I think we learned, I asked Sergey from Starlighter how it's meant to be. It's like axle, like XL, but with an A, like axle.
Yeah, that was it, like a car axle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I watched him play and just the way that he was approaching situations, it's like when I see these kids, like I've had the privilege of watching, just getting to sit in analyst desks, like in studios. And when Rops first joined Mouse Sports, I was just watching Rops. Like I was entire match of watching Rops until he died. And like it's these kids with their awareness, like the fact that their puzzle solving is so much higher, right? And they look like they're calculating quicker. And sure, that's obviously repetition and crosshair placement and deathmatch and, you know, like all those things. But it feels like this next generation is learning a lot quicker. And he was one of those players who I saw a similar kind of style in, really.
It's a lot more natural to them guys as well coming up.
It looks like it, right?
That's what
look as forced.
Because it feels like, especially with some of the older players, it's like they're kind of relearning certain aspects of CS if they played another version, for example, or they've not kind of gone to new meta that comes into play with it, where you look at the young guns and it's like, yep, cool, they get this, they understand how it's going to be played, and they've just got to learn the more experienced bit, maybe not get scared of being on a big stage kind of thing, that kind of stuff. Heck, I'd say the easier parts of them to kind of get over.
And I think as well, like Counter-Strike in the last couple of years has also changed in the approach of individuals. Now, sure, maybe some of the changes in terms of like the bomb timer and the round timer have allowed people to have more time to think out situations. But I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, the majority of the teams were trying to put out a candle with a fire hose, in the sense of Counter-Strike was more like blunt in your approach. You'd have a strat and you'd run your strat, and especially in like 1.6 and Source days, more so Source because of the utility usage and that kind of stuff. When you'd call a strat from the start of the round, there wasn't really any mid-round calling. People would just play and like play off of each other, right? And now I think that we've adapted to such a point in CS where we're seeing so many different facets of the game being used, but there's so much more individual decision making in the duels that are being taken, and the way that like that approach seems to me. When I say more individualistic, I don't mean people are playing more as individuals. I think there's a lot more focus on people in those positions taking those fights, and the way that they go about it is more calculated. It's not as blunt as just like, I'm just going to wide peek, or I'm just going to swing and take this duel and hope. There's so much more nuance in the way that people are approaching almost every corner, every fight, every little detail, and that's the younger generation is doing that better, of course, right? Because that's what they know.
I think their advantage is that they just skipped everything. Like all of these older players had to relearn stuff and like forget stuff that they used to do and that used to work. Especially like I didn't play 1.6, but like just talking to people, getting the feeling of how it was played and how CSGO was played at the start was just like, you hold an angle, you throw a smoke, when the smoke is out, then you just fall back, whatever. Like CT side was played much more defaulty. And I even remember it was like some podcast or interview with NBK when he said like the CT side is becoming like a small T side, and that's something that is now absolutely understood, that you need to like, when someone takes a part of a map, you need to retake another part of the map, or you need to contest it in a certain way with certain like mini setups on like, if someone is taking banana with these and these flashes and this Molotov, then you can use like this smoke to extinguish the Molotov and then use like these 2 flashes to retake that part of the map. And that is what people now understand as normal CS, but it took a lot of time to get to that point for the last like 5 years. I think that people coming in now just naturally understand this and don't need to like relearn all of the classic passive CT side, playing like proper CS that isn't proper CS now, because now you really need to do as you said, take advantage of this situation, take this duel at this position, that because if you don't, people just abuse you, and that's it.
Before we move on from the CIS Minor, I want to get you guys' thoughts, because obviously, CIS Minor comes under a lot of criticism in terms of kind of how some of these teams qualify, how their teams stack up together. What is it that's, like, in you guys' opinion, missing or needed for this region in order for us to see, I don't know, more potential comes through? Because they seem to have so many good, like, one or two players we mentioned names of on these teams, but we're not getting, like, a full, complete roster come together, kind of playing almost perfect in Counter-Strike, or Counter-Strike the way it should be.
I mean, we've seen a lot of these teams. It's just that they didn't stick around for that long. Like, okay, Gambit 3 years ago weren't even that big, right? Oh, let's say 4 years ago. Gambits at the time were basically starting out, right? And they slowly got to that point with some veterans, right? Then Flipside came in with Simple, or even before that at that same time. And then, like, okay, I don't want to mention Winstrike because of how they ended, or QBF at that point. But that's another team, right? At a certain point, basically at the major, they just looked like they were going to be like another one of those CIS teams that could potentially stay at around that level and just like be the upset team. So we've just seen a lot of these names. They just haven't stuck around. They haven't really made the next level as Na'Vi have. Like, we don't see those teams at the very top, but we just every now and again we just see somebody join like the top 20 and actually start being like the upset team or something like that.
I think there is also
just look at Vanguard, right?
I think one of the issues is just the lack of resources / funding. Like, a lot of these teams, no one has the money to buy out like the other two players that they should probably get to become like the second, third, like, I guess like the second best CIS team, because nowadays like even Gambit isn't really good, so it's just Na'Vi. Category just isn't a CIS team. I mean, yeah, kind of not, but they're not. They're kind of mixed from all over. So none of these teams can actually afford to buy the players and then get them into the right mindset, get them the boot camp, get them like at events, and it's also the visas sometimes kind of mess them up. So it's kind of like Vega Squadron is doing like a decent job. They're kind of consistent, but still they're not in Pro League. They're not in all of these other things that they probably should be if they want to be like a top team. And as SPUNJ mentioned before, like Vega doesn't get the same amount of salary that like Rogue gets, that's for sure, even though probably they have better results over the last year. So just because
not that hard.
I also think, like, to build on your point, which is a very good one about the teams not having enough money to buy the players they might need to finish their puzzle, that is almost a product of teams from the region being successful, right? Like, Na'Vi being successful and having a lot of money and being able to throw their big dick around means that if I was the owner of one of these lesser teams and I had like a little, uncut diamond in my roster that I just found, and I could see the clear potential of him, and maybe one day Na'Vi want to come in and buy him, I would make his buyout ridiculous, right? Because if I was a businessman, that's the best way for me to probably go about doing this, right? Unfortunately, there's no like salary caps or this or that, because maybe if that was the case, obviously there'd be certain things that would be shit. Obviously, would have maybe Counter-Strike wouldn't be played at such a high level, but also in mind, if everybody had the same amount of money to work with, maybe we would see more teams being able to play at a profession, like being able to, not have to go work a second job, or people being able to dedicate a bit more time. I think that there's so many different things that could still evolve. I think that the CIS region is just, the issue with them is the disparity of wealth between the top and the bottom, right? Because there's a lot of good players in that region. That goes without saying. I think that the individuals show up time and time again. It's just about catching them up to the way that modern Counter-Strike organizations are being handled so that they can develop. Like, look what Ego did in Poland. Like, they just went with that super professional approach. They were like grinding out. They were doing fantastic things with the team. But then the big swinging dick comes along, Mr. VP, and he goes, I'll fucking have Snatchy. That completely ruins that next step for Ego. If they ever wanted to be like a legitimate team, they've just lost one of their best players, which is great for Snatchy, or not necessarily in hindsight.
We're not sure yet.
at the time it was great for Snatchy, but for the scene of Poland or whatever, that's another shit thing, right? Because they were making good steps, they were doing all the right things, and then that rug just gets pulled out from under them.
Even if Snatchy didn't want to go, if I was Ago, I'm like, okay, just get the fuck out, please. We need this.
Let's
whatever they're paying nice. Just go, okay?
I'm not entirely. By the way, going back to that point about money and just not being able to buy the right players between like those lower tier teams, obviously they're not going to buy out somebody from Navi or something. That's never going to happen.
No.
For multiple reasons. But between each other, like I don't really think that they have at least massive buyouts. I don't think they even have like contracts for a lot of those teams, or contracts that actually make sense or like compared.
I guess that like Gambit, Avantgarde, and Spirit does have.
I don't even think Avantgarde do. I'm not even sure about them. Like Gambit, yeah, sure, that's like the bottom out of those top teams that I could see having like a really.
Vega also has these.
Yeah, I don't know about them. That's true. But yeah, Gambit may be like the fourth team that actually have like decent contracts or earn decent money and have actual buyouts, and the rest I feel like is just like open market basically. I don't think there's any limitations in that region too much anyway. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't know. Let's agree to disagree. That's just my feeling, of course. I don't know like their money balance or anything, but it feels like they miss.
Okay, I do agree with the big dick thing that SPUNJ was talking about. With like obviously, let's just look at what Navi is now consisted of, right? Flamey used to play with Blade, was a really big up and coming start at that point. In 2015, he got drafted in by Navi. Simple, same thing. Just got stolen out of Blade's team. Well, not stolen at that time actually, but still Simple, like one of the best players to ever.
Flamey also went to Hellraisers before that, but it was like the progression from. Flipside Hellraisers, then Navi.
He wasn't even there for that long. But that's just like that. That's what happens when you just have like one team that's obviously the best in that region. That's always going to happen. Like we saw that with Ago, like SPUNJ said. Electronic being literally the same case, just like stepping up in Flipside and then getting the step up, right? So that's always going to happen in one of those. And these basically in any region, I feel like in any country, this is going to happen.
But that is okay. But the problem is now that they don't even have like the feeder system. Like they don't even have the second team, then the third team. Then you know like who's going to be like, oh, okay, these guys are going to be playing the open. I don't know, like DreamHack Opens. These guys are going to be, I don't know, maybe at few of these big events, but they're kind of better than this open team. They're literally everyone is just like mayor random. There's no consistency at all.
Yeah, I think. I agree with that in the sense that it's very sporadic when we see teams, right? Like you see Vega, and then you won't see Vega, and then maybe we'll see Avantgarde, but you never see everybody together. And realistically, if that's the case, how are we gauging who the best teams are? If you want to form another team, like everybody's competing at all different things all the time, right? I think that, and unfortunately, let's hope that Martin's not listening because he'll have a big grin from ear to ear on this one, but the only scene that is doing it right is unfortunately those fucking Danes, right? They're the only ones. And look at how many competitive teams that they have. Sure, Optic and North have been shitting the bed something cruel recently. They haven't been performing or living up to the potential that we all know that they have, right? Heroic, obviously they're flirting with the lines of, but they still somehow manage to perform against good teams. So we're 4 teams deep at this point in a region. Obviously, Freiburg and Modi are not from Denmark, but
that's a region. That's a country with like 5 million people. It's
exactly. But
like Russia alone has, I don't even know the number, but it's a lot of millions.
It's in the tens of millions for sure.
I think like Moscow has more people than
144.5 million people as of 2017 in Russia. So if we include the rest of the surrounding regions that they're using players from, obviously Ukraine has a shitload of people as well, and there's so many countries.
That's like 100 million.
Fucking insane. And the people fucking love Counter-Strike in that part of the world. The thing is, who is responsible for taking care of that, right? It feels like in Denmark it's happened relatively organically. Yeah. I feel like I can use Australia as an example. When Renegades left and we went to the United States, we left like a power vacuum that now everybody fights over, right? But I think it's more competitive now than it was when we were there because we were just beating everybody. Now there's 4 teams who can maybe beat each other any given Sunday. So I think like I don't know. You can't. Every region's different, cultural things, etc. It's strange on like how Denmark, just these fucking cunts who talk like they have potatoes in their mouths, are able to like just organically, it feels, have produced this. Like obviously Frags has just imploded, right? But they were another team who was doing all the things right. They were sticking together. They were practicing hard. That it felt like, at least from the outside looking in, they were taking all the right steps. We don't have the same insight into the CIS region, unfortunately. But for maybe, like I said, maybe it's a cultural thing. These are things that unfortunately I don't think we'll ever understand.
Maybe for another episode we get on like a few CIS people on and maybe shed some light. Get Overdrive on and someone else. I can talk shit. That'd be good. I think.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, but I think just to close it off, Fragsters falling apart is the CIS scene. I mean, Fragsters had an org, but then the org kind of ran out of money. Then they're like, okay, you have like 3 more months of contracts. And they were like, okay, we'll stick together. Yeah, we're sticking together. Sign us. And then, of course, they didn't stick together. Everyone just left when they got better offers. That's how I feel like shit happens in CS, because nothing is stable and someone else is offering you 50 euros more, and then you go there, even though it's probably not the best solution for you. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, you can even see like it also comes down to a playstyle thing, and just the CIS players just being generally a lot more emotional. Just Danes just generally have a lot more sense in their play, and just a lot more reason in general. So that's already kind of like a prerequisite to you kind of like making the step up, right? While in the CIS region, they've always been really aggressive. Like whatever upcoming CIS team you look at, they always have like this little obnoxious kind of style that's going to surprise people, but it's not going to work consistently, right?
Yeah,
so that's the problem I see in the CIS region.
Yeah. Also, remember how Danes used to be like the worst ever with all the roster changes and stupid infights, and girlfriends that's not true. Being allowed in studios and stuff like that, destroying teams. Sake. So can you imagine that's like the country you're like, oh, they're the best in CS, they're so mature, professional, blah blah. Literally 2013.
This is not that long ago even. This is like 4 years ago.
Yeah, they were literally they were a meme.
Yeah, basically like they were TS or Dignitas, TSM, whatever Astralis, and then like the rest of the scene was just like fucking insane for that time. Yeah.
I don't know if we can disclose that, but I remember that.
I
don't know who it was.
I want to say that now, Lucas has put it there.
There's,
I'll say it. I don't know the player, so I just read it verbatim if we want.
Yes. Anonymous tip.
We had a case where a guy got kicked from his team because he added one of his teammates' sisters on Facebook. Now, to be fair, if I had some teammates with some hot sisters, maybe, anything's possible. It's a bonding experience.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the right bonding experience, but okay.
CS family, as they say.
In-game leader to potential new brother-in-law.
What? I think it's time for the EU Minor.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to Europe before we dive any more into the madness. So the European side of things, right? We touched on it a little bit in the show previously. It's got a hell of a lot of strong teams in there. We've got Mouse Sports, Windigo Optic, North, Space Soldiers, ENCE, Valiance, and Team Vitality. And as much as I was be like, yeah, I think Mouse Sports can do really well, they should do really well. My main things I want to look at is just ENCE and Vitality, because I'm just excited to see, first of all, what ENCE can continue and if they can continue doing it, because they play a style of Counter-Strike that I enjoy watching. And Vitality, look, you got Alex now from LDLC. They seem super confident, but they struggled a little bit in trying to qualify to get there in the first place, right? They did it in like the very last part.
People might not have to tune into the broadcast tomorrow because this is literally everything I'm probably going to say there. But I think in my books, if you look at this on paper, Mouse Sports are clearly the favorite, right? There's no one can argue with that fact. And then for me, this is where people will probably like can contest this point. But for me, I am like you know, the British government with Brexit at the moment, I've given the vote of no confidence to the Danish teams, North and Optic, until they can prove some form of consistency to me. Like, it's so hard to go in banking and being like, fuck, like, look at the cores of this team. There's so much firepower. They're sick. They have seasoned, well, Cadian's not a seasoned in-game leader, but Snappy is, and go in and I tout all this stuff, and I think there's so much potential for them to do really well. And someone said that I hate Denmark, or I don't. I was just making some gags before. I'm a big fan of Danish Counter-Strike. But I actually would put in coming in the second and third spots in this minor, and this is in no particular order, I would be looking towards ENCE and Vitality. Now, it's for two completely contrasting reasons. Mousesport's clearly the favorite. They have the most experience. They've won big tournaments. They have, they have all the tools in the shed to build that fucking piece of IKEA furniture. But ENCE and Vitality, ENCE for me, like you said, I really like the style of Counter-Strike that they play, and I really like the players they have in the team. Their biggest problem is confidence in closing out matches and having an individual to step up and be the closer when they need it to happen. Someone just to say, look, we've been on 15 rounds now for ages. He just steps up, gets a sick 3. That's an experience thing. And I think with them winning the DreamHack event and the StarLadder event, they're getting more and more of that. Then on the contrast of those things, it's Vitality, who have experience in spades. And this is where if ZywOo can do half of what he does online for this team, I'm expecting more of an output on LAN from RPK, Apex, and MBK than online. They have had to fucking fight through the gauntlet, and it would have been such a humbling experience to get back to just this point. Like, fuck. Like, that's something that's really going to eat away at you, and you really have to want it to get back to where you were. So I think on LAN, and we're going up against teams who either dilapidated like Space Soldiers, unfortunately, with this entire situation at the moment, or Wendigo and Valiant, who don't have the same level of experience. That's where the likes of Vitality step up, and they go, look, the big boys here are back in town. So contrasting reasons for ENCE and Vitality, but I see those two as fighting for that second and third spot. But I also think that I liked what I saw from Wendigo online. I really like Poison. Poison looks fucking sick. That kid looks nuts.
When you just look at some of the talent, right? You have ZywOo, you have Poison, then I guess you have Refresh, who's still kind of new. Esperanto, like that minor is just like, if you want youngsters, if you want to see some youngsters play, like this minor is it. Like Sergey, I fucking forgot to mention him. It's just like so many.
Already won an MVP last year, so
yeah, Starlo.
Yeah. So like if you wanna watch some really good players who are probably younger than you and just wreck some heads, just watch this minor, because there's just too many of them.
Literally, who isn't younger than me at this point? But
well,
I guess this is for the public.
I didn't mean you. I meant like for the general viewer.
No, I mean like ZywOo. I'm looking forward to just like a ZywOo at the minor highlight video. That's gonna happen, I'm sure. Just like easy, chill. Put on that, like have a beer, like 5 minutes, watch that. That's gonna be insane. Like I'm not even doubting that he's gonna show up, because he showed up in Atlanta, and he'll show up here as well. Because I don't feel like he even gets the way he played. Doesn't matter like who is there. It's just like random models, like characters on the screen, and he shoots heads. That's the feeling I get when watching him. Like but at the same time, like ENCE last minor, I felt like they were kind of fucked that they didn't go through, but at the same time they had like NIP and they had the Optic, that both I think both of those teams had their peak at that minor, and then ENCE just failed, and it was kind of sad because their whole year, I mean, like 6 months, that minor is somewhere in the middle. Their 6 months were pretty sick for them, but it just like at the right time they didn't hit like the right form. This time is going to be even harder, like the worst minor ever. This is disgusting to just look at this like team lineup, but whatever. Hopefully they can make it through. I feel like they're a team that should be moving forward from this whole thing. And Valiant as like the local team, kind of local team. I don't really even see them as that anymore, because they kind of, with these like 2 foreigners that they're 2 main stars even, I just like lost all connection with these guys. It's just like
traders.
It's just like Chelsea or whatever. It's just like they have all these imported players. I don't care anymore. Even though I like Nexa. Nexa's a legend, but otherwise it's just like whatever.
Chad, you touched on the whole like Optic North thing. I just like, I'm similar to you saying, yeah, I don't think they're going to do anything here, but is there a potential they can use some of what they've got? Because every now and again, right, they have one of them performances where you go, oh, look, they look like they've actually been working on something. Could we have seen them be able to change things around, or is it going to come back to, I think I said it last episode, where I was just like, let's just collapse these two lineups and mix them around together?
Look, there's clear reasons why config doesn't work with some of the players in North, right? I think that has to have been at least felt. That's not me knowing anything that people at home don't. That's just me thinking, why would you not have config in your team if you could, right? Because he has a lot of firepower. I look at where North is at 10th in the world right now, and look, that's considering their results and the potential of how high I think they should be. I think that's probably right for North. Yeah, like I think that they probably fit that bill. But looking at Optic coming in at 19th, for me, looking at the teams ahead of them in the rankings, it feels like both those squads, North and Optic, should be ranking within the top 15 teams in the world. Just purely because of the players that they have. And I don't know if watching a lot of online Counter-Strike because of Pro League and stuff like that has brainwashed me, but it's not even the historic feeling anymore. We all remember when AZ was fucking sick, like everybody. But I still watch him play, and he has these moments. And I'm like, if you could just have these moments on a relatively consistent basis, you make up what could be a really sick core. Kirby, Voldy, and AZ, that's a magnificent trio. Now, Katie and I at the last major and minors, when he was when he was in-game leading, and I was listening to him communicate in English to a team, obviously the American squad Rogue, he was very calm and collected, and it was a different Katie to the one that I remember in the past. And then Gade as well has been impressive for me in the sense of just being that anchor player. So North, these guys going up against like an NRG or an NIP or even a Mouse Sports, in my mind, should be very competitive, if not winning 50% of the matches they play against those teams. And then Optic should be beating Renegades. Optic should be beating Hellraisers. Like, this is another case of me maybe being brainwashed by online Counter-Strike. But Yugi, that kid, when I watch him, he's sick. I don't understand what the problem is. Yugi, config, and now you add refresh into that mix. That's another pretty convincing star trio. Cajun always gets his in matches where he needs to step up and be the backbone. And I think Snappy is a good in-game leader. I like his approach to the game, and I like his actual output feels like he is contributing. So I don't know what the issues are for either of these teams in competing at this level, but they haven't proved it consistently. And that's my point, that they have the lineups that should be more consistent than a Renegades, than where, look, I'm even going to say even where Hellraisers are at the moment, right? Like, I think that the Optic and North are both teams, in my mind, on paper, who should be better than teams of that caliber.
Just looking like at Cajun B, like a lot of people look at him as like, oh, this guy's old, maybe if they replace him. Cajun B last 3 months on LAN, he had like CS Summit, DreamHack Open Winter, and ESL Pro League relegation. Okay, not like the top events, but he has like a 1.16 rating. He's been playing, like, you can't say he's been playing bad. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, for that, he's like slotted into some like lurking rifler role. Like, he is doing his own. It's just about these young guys that should be the stars that actually aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's what. If they had maybe the sixth player would be a solution here. Bench config for like a month and then put in whoever, and then maybe he gets back to his own senses. Maybe bench Snappy, put in SPUNJ to game lead. Who knows?
I'll just turn it around on Yugi, because I like, okay, a year ago, or like, let's say in the first maybe 4 months of 2018, I saw Yugi as like the next big thing in Denmark, as like 100% being part of the next shuffle between like those top two teams, I'm going to say, when MSL was still in North. I saw him as being like in the next Astralis lineup if they ever changed, before Astralis became the best fucking lineup ever. But like suddenly it's just like he fell off so much, and he just doesn't look like that star player anymore. And I have to agree with SPUNJ. Like, I have no idea what happened to him or that entire team. It's just so baffling that this team is not doing well, and I'm just going to repeat that over and over because we've been saying it for a very long time now. But it's just, I don't understand it at all.
Just waiting for someone to come out and put out a tweet longer saying like, Yugi was shooting heroin or something. Just give me something,
Jesus
give me a
Christ.
reason why this is happening.
Wow.
That's just in general. Not saying Yugi is doing heroin, but someone maybe in the team, I don't know, heavy drug
but
use,
we don't
whatever.
know. We don't know if he isn't doing heroin. So who knows? That got rough.
Okay, I don't know where to go from there.
Well, we could talk about I should shut up because I'm gonna shut up.
No, just say it. Just say it. Like we've passed
I
that
was going
point.
to say we could talk about Yam to space soldiers, but then people would be like, "Why is SPUNJ making a correlation between Yam, heroin, and space soldiers?" That's not it at all. It's just we haven't talked about space soldiers in depth.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I thought
That is true. We had an interview with Major coming out today, which since I was mega busy, just scrolled through now. But he said something along the lines was, it's just a classic. People leaving the team without saying they're leaving the team, but just saying like, I feel unhappy, blah blah. And then after like 3 days, he's like, I was talking with Big for like 2 weeks already. So,
yeah, there's a lot of that you could probably put down to the age of people, which is unfortunate. Like people don't know how to deal with those kind of situations and emotions. That's why so many people ghost people. Because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's kind of the same with your teammates. But with the fact that we have this roster where Xantares has gone to Big for the major, and Yam, for those who don't know, he's an Australian Counter-Strike player, played with me in Renegades, and he has of Turkish descent, so that's why this kind of makes sense. Him coming into this team, no one in their right mind would ever say that Yam could replace what Xantares brings as a 1-for-1. That's completely ridiculous. But I think what he can bring to the team is he can take up the primary AWPing duties, because that's always been an interesting thing for me in the Space Soldiers team, is sometimes Paz was doing it, and sometimes Major was doing it. And Yam is the type of guy, if he loses the duel to the AWPer in Window or Mirage, he'll be like, drop me a fucking AWP, I'm going to go kill that cunt. So that's what you kind of want from an AWPer, that level of confidence. Sure, sometimes it's bad, but it's kind of good to have that when they're decisive. The issue is, it kind of leaves a power vacuum of who steps up to be the third star within the team. Because Calix now is probably going to find a lot more freedom in positions, which is good for him to find more space to be more of a fragger, because he is a very good player. It used to be the duo, right? That's what we talked about. But Paz has also had his moments at majors, like as an individual player. I remember highlight clips on Cobblestone, and I think that he is not untapped, because we've seen him play a lot, but I think that he can definitely step up and take more of a star load as well. The problem they have is they're playing Ents in the opening game. And when you play a very structured team and you haven't had a lot of time to practice, which is going to unfortunately be the case, their structure is going to 9 times out of 10 trump, unless Calix goes on and drops 40 in a game, right? It's going to trump those star rounds, because let's say he gets a 2-for-1 or he gets a 3-for-1 kind of trade situation going on. It's in those mid rounds where the experience of the team with more structure shines, and you as a team who are thrown together, communication issues, not playing together for such a long period of time, that's where your cracks start to show. So in terms of going deep in the tournament, it's very difficult to see Space Soldiers doing any damage, but I think they'll still be competitive. They were competitive with Hardstyle, right? So I still think that they can be a competitive unit, and I love Major's mentality. I love the way that he approaches the game, and any level of adversity they find themselves in, he just gets on with it, you know. And I think that's going to be a really strong point for them in this event.
Hardest worker in the room, Major. I remember seeing him at I think it was E-League Minus when they were doing that. And this dude was downstairs like 6 in the morning every day, like breakfast time, getting himself ready, notebook out, fully prepped, getting them all like put into a good spot. He was talking to them about how they were feeling and things. I got a lot of respect for that guy. I just want to know what they're going to be able to do after this, because like you were kind of saying there, I don't think there's any real hope coming on to this one.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough spot.
I think SPUNJ is...
Yeah, you take it.
SPUNJ is definitely right in that Paz is going to have to be the next one. In line for that star role in the team, because it's nobody else. I don't think anybody else. Calix is an obvious one, but he's always been that. So that's a given. But Paz has got to join him in that spot now that Xantares has left. That's the only way that I can see this lineup working. Because obviously, like, yeah, I'm sure, like you say, it's like firepower-wise doesn't match up anywhere close to Xantares, and with Major in that kind of a similar spot, and Engine as well, it's just like it's gonna have to be somebody stepping up, and it has to be him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Paz is the obvious pick when you go about thinking about firepower for this team. He has had like pretty good periods. I think the Major was his like pretty kind of breakout performance in a way. People started saying like, okay, this Paz guy is legit, and yeah, they had a decent run there. I feel really bad for this team. Like, everything they went through, like missing out a few tournaments for visa issues, then they kind of fall off a bit in form. They have like internet issues all the time. I remember that like 1v1 that they lost in a qualifier because Xantares just literally disconnected in a 1v1, and if he literally disconnected behind the wall, he would have won it, but he didn't. So GG. And yeah, and then they finally get out of the org that paid them like, I don't know, donuts per month or whatever, allegedly. And then of course what's going to happen if they don't sign like for a new org in a month? It's the same the Fragster scenario. Someone is going to leave for sure, and Xantares will be the first one on anyone's list. So yeah, now they're in a pretty shitty situation, and I don't see how they recover from this. Like, they need to pick up someone from like one of the lower Turkish teams. It's like Sasuke Mini, one of those guys I used to play with Voxic, and maybe make it work with that. I feel like.
For me, obviously, this isn't the situation we found ourselves in, so I'm speaking with the decision for Xantares to move on. But I would have really liked to have seen this team have stayed together and put in that same level of workload that we know that they're capable of, go to this minor, qualify either in one of the top two positions or make it in that last chance qualifier, and then they have the fairy tale story of they've made it back to the major, and now an organization will pick them up, right? Like, you put in the hard work and you get rewarded by being picked up by an organization which will actually pay you a wage which you deserve. And that was kind of, I suppose, what a lot of the players mentally either hopefully were banking or should have been banking on. Let's work our fucking balls off. Let's be in there every day getting this best possible result we can, because we're fighting for our back pocket right now. We're fighting to do something we love and to give ourselves the best monetary incentive possible, right? And for Xantares, I look, I can't blame him. He's gone to a team that's already in the major, like they're already deep. So I get it. But the fact that apparently he turned down offers from bigger teams. But you look at that as a lot of these players, you see, oh, you know, it'd be great if I could play with my countrymen again someday, and all this. He's kind of had the opportunity served up when Space Soldiers are a team who have been on our radar consistently now for a very long time, and the potential is there for them to, you know, be breaking through. Unfortunately, visa issues, all that nonsense kind of plagued them for a while. It's just a shame to see that kind of all fall apart, and I know that doesn't reflect in what's going to go down in the tournament. It's just one of those opportunities which I, from a romantic point of view, would have liked to have seen going down another way, because these guys are definitely a team that really put in the effort. Hashtag fuck the police.
Yeah. I was just...
There's nothing to add to that, for sure.
Kind of covers it.
I don't see them coming back from it.
Yeah.
Unless, like, Paz suddenly becomes this god that we haven't seen before, which is just obviously not going to happen. It's not a realistic expectation. So in this minor, you have to feel like with the timing of Xantares leaving, they're just going to be out of the running completely. That they might be the only one that I see completely out of the running, actually. Just because of the timing, not even because of it, but because it's EM or replacing him or because of the star situation, just because they didn't have the time at all.
It's going to be rebuilding process for them.
I do feel like people are just a bit sleeping on Valiant, even though I said earlier that I don't really care about them that much. I think they're playing decent. They're at least playing these online leagues and stuff like that. So they re-qualified for MDL, playing like the Unicorn League, stuff like that. They're in decent form, and they have and they have like decent players. Like Nexa is pretty good, and Esperanto is pretty good, and Otto is also pretty good. So You have Hunter, who's like the best player that is not Nico from the region. And Letny is also like a decent player overall. He's the in-game leader. He can frag, has a brain for the game. So overall, they're kind of okay. I wouldn't like cut them out completely. If things go well, like Esperanto can carry you through games alone almost. And I think like Nexa is pretty underrated overall, just as a fragger.
Yeah, these are kind of the proving grounds though, right? Like this is the case of, for these guys, this is what people I guess at home don't realize, or maybe they don't think about it as much, but if you do well at this tournament and you qualify for the next stage, and you do well in that stage, for the smaller events that are rolling around, that's you putting your hand up and saying, I'm worthy of an invitation to a DreamHack Open event. And that's how you start to get on the circuit more regularly. Like that's why these kind of tournaments are so hugely important, because that's the only way that you're going to, the next Star Ladder event where Astralis and FaZe decide they don't want to go and 2 more slots become available, that's when you're win to go and you want to go, well, we put up a really good fight against Mouse Sports in the minor, so like you can consider us. And this is why this region, obviously, we all know that the way that the system works at the moment, you're hampered for being from Europe, right? It's just more competitive. There's no doubt about it. That's just the way it is. And we've already made a good step by having this new last chance qualifier thing to allow an extra European team to get in. I think that the next step on that, at least in my mind, would be instead of having just the 3rd place team, have the 3rd and 4th place teams from every minor stay. And then that way you're getting 2 teams coming. So you're doing a whole nother minor with 2 teams from each region. And then more likely than not, you're having 2 more European teams go through, right? And then I think everybody at that point has to start being pretty happy with the way things are shaping up. But all in all, with these teams, the only one who I see as, I don't want to say not having a shot, because like I mentioned before, we have that caveat of everybody coming off of the break, it is Space Soldiers. And I still think that they in the best of ones, the first round, there's still always that sliver of hope. But everybody else, with the rosters that they have here, there is no reason that they couldn't actually be extremely competitive and put up a really good fight in any circumstance. It doesn't feel like there's anybody hugely lacking, in my mind.
Are you excited, SPUNJ?
I am, because we're going into the unknown, right? Like this is, you come out of this and like you build up, and we get to Odessa and we have like we have Lisbon, all this kind of stuff, and the Counter-Strike kind of like simmers down. But now we come out, it's kind of like, going in the ocean. Like I can't see what's below me. I have an idea that there's fucking sharks in the water, but I don't know which one of these cunts is going to bite me. And it's really scary to think that this is the big tournament straight away, and they're obviously practicing against each other. They know more than we do, but like we're going into this, and I have to analyze this pretty much unknown for a lot of these teams, right? It's like I can only talk about what happened last year, or some of them who have played very few online matches this year. So for me, it's like an exciting prospect to get to see what they've been working on, and if anybody's actually added anything to their playbooks.
Are we worried at all here about potential, though, that Mouse Sports get upset with it all, or is it just kind of a given thing they should make it through? Because obviously they're the heavily favoured ones to finish this off.
I honestly don't see a way, honestly. Even like, sure, you can talk about the Europe minor being by far the most competitive. That's true, but they're just by far the biggest name there. I'd be shocked if they didn't make it.
That's the thing.
It'd be a massive upset. It'd be a huge shock, definitely. They
would have to massively underperform. Like it wouldn't take like 2 teams. I don't see 2 teams like matching their level. So they would have to like just underperform so hugely. And even then, they would probably go 3rd and go into that minor playoff thing and still make it to the major, because they would just beat anybody else who plays 3rd. So
that is the thing. But
I just don't see a way.
They need to play at least 4 matches. They need to win like 4 consecutive matches to go through, right? So chances of getting upset and against, if they have like 10% of getting upset in every of those matches,
like, I'm
it's
not
not
saying
that unlikely
not
for one to happen.
I'm not saying that they won't lose a map or anything. Like I said, like some of these teams have the potential to take a map off them. They're playing a best of one, although it's Valiance, and I'm not entirely sure that they are one of those teams. But just like to see them outside of the top three, there's just no way. I don't see 3 teams being better than them. It would take a lot. So I'm not worried at all. Like even if it was from the 3rd spot, like I just don't see a way where most sports fuck up to that level. There's no way.
There's no way. We're gonna hold you to that. No, that's
sure.
Obviously,
look,
they are the ones
as far as
expected
predictions
to
go,
go
this
through.
is an easy one.
Yeah, well, let's come on to that then, right? Because the next part is the bit that you can lead here, Striker. It's the GG bet of the week. Remember, if you are going to be betting, you've got to be over 18. Don't bet money you don't have. Bet responsibly and all that lot, because we're going to find out what our options are across both the CIS and the European Minor. Maybe there's a few spicy ones in there that you want to take a pot luck at.
I mean, we just picked out to look at this the favorites, right? We've been talking about the favorites for a long time. So let's take a look at them. It's basically the favorites from both in all the matchups at both minors, right? So first of all, on the left side you have the CIS one. So Gambit, Spirit, Windstrike, Avantgarde. You can see the matchups on HLTV if you want to see them. I'm not sure if we could show them on the screen right now. But it actually should be pretty visible. I don't see it because I have a pretty low resolution. So hopefully somebody can help me out because I don't remember exactly.
Gambit versus Seaman. And Gambit is going to beat that Seaman easily 1.26 odds on Gambit. And then, then it's Spirit against Nemiga, also like favorite 1.22. Windstrike against Runtime. Are they actually the favorites here?
That was very close. Like when Runtime were like 183 or 193, I'm not sure. They were very close to each other. So basically, like in the CIS Minor, it's going to be the same thing in the Europe one. But basically in the CIS Minor, you have 3 pretty high favorites, which are the 3 teams that we were talking about the most, Avantgarde, Spirit, and Gambit. Yeah. And then the last matchup is between Runtime and Windstrike is the close one, right? Where it's kind of like 50-50. I think anybody here can agree with that. Like I'm not entirely sure that Windstrike is to me a favorite over Runtime. That's pretty correct. I would even say a little bit more than like a 0.15 difference or whatever it is. Yeah. But the rest of it, I feel like makes a lot of sense.
But with those favorites, that's a like a multi in Australia would call that. But so like, what are the odds if you put all that together? Because that like
3.5 or something, 3.56, I think it was.
That's pretty reasonable, all things considered, like the way those matchups shape up. Just quickly before we continue on with the betting discussion, can we just ban the Muppets with terrible opinions saying Counter-Strike is dead in chat? Because you fucking drop kicks are literally some of the dumbest cunts in the history of the world. If you don't even understand why I'm saying that, you should probably just turn your computer off and never turn it on again.
Good point.
Anyways,
we've survived everything. We've beaten off everything else, and that's why CS stays as the number 1 esport.
Striker.
You
can continue into the EU.
No. I mean, I was just you broke my flow. Go for it.
I just wanted to read because you can't read. Obviously.
No. I can see it now. I looked at
go for it
differently. You're talking about the Europe Minor, I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, as I was saying earlier, this is kind of the same thing as with the CIS one, where 3 teams are pretty heavily favored over the other, which is Mall Sports North and Ents over Valiance, Wendigo. I still can't read properly. Space Soldiers. There we go. Those being the really one-sided ones, and then Vitality against Optic being the close one, which is I think it was like also like 1.9 for Optic or like 2.0, close to that. So another one of those like close to 50-50 with Vitality slightly favored. And again, to me that makes a lot of sense. I think in total it adds up to like 4.5 here. It's a little bit more. So maybe there's some money to grab there, but that's just based on, I don't know. I would not bet on this Vitality against Optic. I feel like that's way too close to 50-50 to me.
Yeah, I mean, generally just betting on 4 favorites on the same tournament.
Yeah,
that never works. We always see some I mean, especially first land game, like in a month or 2 months for some of these teams. So I think something is going to go wrong for sure. Just need to guess which team, which match.
I mean, to be honest, like I really don't see Valiance having a chance against most sports, best of one or not. Wendigo North, I feel like could be interesting just because of. I mean, okay, Wendigo actually have quite a lot to read up on just because they played EPL. Obviously, they play EPL, so they have quite a lot of games that you can look at and just kind of figure out how they play. So for North, especially for a team like North, who will be looking at their opponents a lot and kind of trying to figure out how to play against them. But I mean, that one, like among the favorites, I would say that one is the most dangerous.
Honestly, if I was betting, I'd just go for like ENS to beat Space Soldiers and put in like. I'm not gonna say like I'm seeing amount because people say like I'm just like fucking people's lives if they bet like 2,000 euros, but that is the bet. Kind of the bet. That style of betting was what I would go for. Like no way ENS is losing.
That's the safe betting.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as safe betting. That's
as safe as you can get, as close as it is. Yeah,
erring on the side of caution in that regard, right? But
yeah.
I think that like the odds, I agree. The only ones which I would maybe think are a little bit egregious is the win strike versus runtime one. The rest of them, like in head-to-head matchups, I don't mind them. I think that they're pretty reasonable considering what we know at this point, right? That can change a lot as soon as tomorrow's finished. But right now, like looking at that, it's very fair. I think they've done a good job, surprisingly.
Yeah, usually you just see some really obnoxious ones where it just doesn't make sense to you at all. But I mean, okay, there's one here though. Like if you look at most sports and against Valiance, I don't know why I keep saying Valiance. 1.29 compared to 1.33 that ENS have on Space Soldiers. I don't see how that's real. Because that's way too close to each other. Like most sports are definitely way more favored than over Valiance than ENS are over Space Soldiers.
I wouldn't say so. I would say ENS are the bigger favorites against Space Soldiers with you.
The standard factor plays a huge role, right? Like that.
If it was Zentaris, okay, but this way, I feel like ENS is like you go for like ENS win strike combo for like two things that makes like the biggest odds for something that
against them.
Oh, go for ENS and win strike.
Oh, ENS and win strike. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, maybe. I just feel like most sports are just way more favored over Valiance, standard or not. I just don't see.
I mean, how 1.29 is decent, but I don't think
it's actually not bad, to be honest. Like I would have expected it to be a lot lower. I would have expected maybe like 1.15 on that matchup. Like look at Spirit, they have 1.22 against Nemiga or something like that. It's just just feels like most sports should have had a little bit lower odds. I feel like that could be a money grabber right there.
They might make one mistake, right? Give someone a bit of a hope and a dream.
Yeah, that's the odds on GG.bet. If someone is interested, you can go on GG.bet. I guess that's the website. GG.bet.
Yeah. That would be it.
No, it's not. It's ggbet.com. Why is the logo gg.bet?
No, it's gg.bet.
Literally misleading.
Probably got both, you know. They can buy multiple URLs.
You can go to gg.bet that you get there. I just did it,
lads. You guys are supposed to be good at this promotion, Lark.
Exactly.
They have both. They can't fuck it up.
They work both? Okay, fair enough. So we can argue as long as we want. We're both right.
But it's not even a redirect. It's literally, it works on both sides. It's pretty interesting.
It's a win-win for both of you. That's where these can all go. Good luck betting on the minors, people. Remember, be over 18 and all that lark. Let's get on to the iBUYPOWER Masters, because that's an event which is like not slipping under the radar. It's actually been quite an interesting event given the level of teams that are there. But it's going on during the minors. It will be coming up this weekend. We've got Astralis, Gold9, Complexity, FaZe, Fnatic, Ghost, Liquid, and Luminosity all in attendance. And okay, we got a bit of the interesting one there, right? FaZe, we get to see him, Adren, take his shot, see what he can do here. Astralis, I guess, is just a warm-up mode for them. Is the domination going to continue? Most likely. Cloud9 with the interesting roster. We don't know if we're going to see Golden or Celsius come into it. I can't remember what the exact final thing on it was. And then we get the new complexity roster with nothing coming into play, which will be very good, I think, in terms of actually just giving us a bit of like a bit of fun
Also,
to look, rolling back the years.
Can I ask a question before we go?
There we go. But
who invited Luminosity to this event?
Oh,
and
come
why?
on.
But why?
Was it before they had the change?
I mean, they didn't even change. They have a stand-in for Bolts because Bolts doesn't have a visa. But even if he does have a visa, they're like number 29. They didn't even qualify for the minor. Why are they here? Like all of these other teams, I'm sure you could invite like a top 15 team that is like a Hellraisers or something that wanted to play something before the major, but no, you invite Luminosity. I mean, maybe it's just a Brazilian factor, but just like a team, I don't see why.
Did they do well at the last one? I don't know. Maybe that's.
They are like the second one to be announced, I think.
They don't They don't have to fly them very far, so it doesn't cost them very much money.
Maybe that's
probably.
They do have
it's legit
teams right there.
And it's like maybe it's like they want Brazilian fans to have someone to watch because it's a larger fan base. But overall, I feel like just when I saw like Astralis invited number one, then it's Luminosity second team. Like,
to be completely honest, there's only 4 teams at the event anyway: Astralis, Liquid, FaZe, and Fnatic. Like you've got, unfortunately, this is not meant as any disrespect. Okay, let me get to Ghost, but this is not meant as any disrespect to Cloud9 or Cloud9 fans. But the team right now is a fucking dumpster fire, right? Like honestly, like what the fuck's going on? I understand that Golden is out of commission due to health issues. I understand that, but even still, with Golden in that roster, you look at it, it's like, what fucking timeline are we living in right now where we have Flusher and Kiyoshima playing in the same Counter-Strike team in North America? It's like, how the fuck did this happen? But let me get to that Ghost point, because I think this is really important for this tournament. Astralis and Liquid, Astralis, just Astralis. For them, it's just a tune-up event. Make sure that they still know how to put gas in their car. For FaZe, obviously, this is kind of a big deal to see how things are feeling in a more of a competitive environment. Liquid, the same situation with Stewie. And then Fnatic need to just continue where they left off, right? That's all they need to do. Just continue where they left off, show good signs, maybe save a couple things for the major. But Ghost, this for them, because Steel can't play for them, this for them is their Super Bowl, right? Like this for them is a big event. They're kicking off the year. They're going up against tier 1 opponents in a pretty unforgiving format for tier 1 teams, right? Best of ones in the GSL, in the group stage, right? In the bracket stage before they move to the playoff. So for them, this is where if you're going to be looking at any upsets, Ghost are fucking looking like pretty hot, right? So really, this kind of event could send one of the big names going into the major feeling a little bit battered and bruised. And that's why I question some of them deciding to play these prac events. I like FaZe, I don't think this is a good decision for them at all. Like, they have E-League the following week as well. I think it's a bad decision. I think you guys know how to play Counter-Strike. You've added another element that's firepower. Just go to the major and fucking just start swinging your big dicks. You guys don't need any more experience. Adren doesn't need any more experience playing a LAN event. Like, you guys have it in fucking spades. This is time that is better spent practicing than traveling to North America and pracking against shit tier teams while the rest of them are over there in Europe right now getting ready for the minor, right? So it's like, for me, the trade-off, not worth it.
I guess it's just like the FaZe mentality of playing events instead of practicing. They just want to play events instead of practice.
But the person's mouth I heard that come out of was Kiyoshima. So we're talking 2.5 years ago now, right? I don't remember if the other guys said it. I know that Kiyo said that.
I think Nico said the same.
Okay.
Like, he didn't say the same, but he implied it, like, in an interview or something, somewhere along the lines, like this last year.
I mean, I guess I'm also not entirely sold on basically like doing it the baptism by fire for Adren, just like chucking him into a LAN environment where he has to like communicate under pressure and stuff like that. I think he would have used a couple of weeks more just trying it out online before he actually gets put into this situation. But at the same time, like doing it at a major, for Dren, from his point of view, I would not want to be in that situation where I would have to just like play my first LAN in English at a major. I would want to have like an event or two, especially like these events where they don't really have that much pressure on themselves. Especially the second one, like E-League, like we're gonna get to that in the next episode, but that's an event where they're pretty obvious favorites, right? So I'm a little bit on the fence on this, just because of Adren and because of the communication thing. Because for him, it's going to be pretty new.
The thing is, it's like Astralis is going to be playing 50% of their like max level at this event, and I feel like they're going to still win. And that's going to be
okay.
sad.
Can I pull a SPUNJ here? Can I pull a SPUNJ at the FACEIT major, or I don't know what else was before that? I'm going to say that Fnatic are going to make the final.
Say or oh. Yeah, I can see that. Like, are you talking about the major, or are you talking about this event?
No, here at this event.
Look, I could definitely see that happening as well, because I think that they're going to be playing with more hunger than some of the other teams. I agree with the sentiment you made about like FaZe. For them, it's like a tune-up event, right? Whereas like Fnatic are kind of just taking steps at a time to return to that top level. I think you can tell in interviews with the likes of JW and Crims, and I use this already with some teams, that they've been humbled, right? This is another team or another set of players that the same things had to happen with, and now that they're getting good results, they're going to be very hungry for a victory. For them, the confidence is probably more important than just going back to play another event. Like trying their absolute hardest here to get some victories, to get some mental steps forward, I think is hugely important for them. And I definitely see a world where they could make it to the final for sure.
I just like, this was something that I was thinking about, like that just brushed off on like a week ago maybe. The Fnatic could actually look pretty good at this event, and when I was thinking about it more, it was just like, look at how they ended the year, right? Look at how they ended last year. But like, aside from the PLG title, that was kind of like, okay, they were kind of the favorites there anyway, or like one of maybe two teams that I guess people saw as favorites, or three, I guess. And before that, they had the Chicago run, right, where they went to the semifinals, where Brolin looked really good. I was actually really surprised by him. And Crims also looked at like his early 2018 level as well, which are the two main factors for me. Like as long as those two perform, like I feel like the rest will just fall into place. And with everybody else, basically everybody else kind of testing out new lineups, aside from Astralis, I don't think, like sure, they almost beat Astralis in Chicago. They almost made the final over Astralis even. They fucked up a 15-10 lead on Inferno, basically. They should have been in that final, but they weren't. And after that, I just think they're going to run with the confidence against some of these lineups that are just going to test new things.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Ghost. Imagine seeing Steel lift the trophy. That'd be.
Would that be the level where we unban him or what?
We would unban Swag. We wouldn't unban Steel.
Yeah, right.
Steel is a piece of shit. We all know that. Swag is innocent, and Steel is like he's the worst. I'm obviously just making fun of the Reddit people and Twitter people. Of course, no one ever talks about anything except Swag. Just making fun of that. I like Steel.
You know what? Someone tell me before I fuck up real bad. Has ESL announced the format for the major yet? Like the structure of each part?
No.
All right.
No.
Well, I'll shut
yes,
the fuck
they
up
did.
Then.
Please tell your opinion.
You
on
could have
it.
been baited so hard
Well,
then.
that's why I had to check and hope that everyone's being honest. Anyway, someone else talk now.
Okay. I guess that's a point.
Gone.
That's a point that disappeared right there.
I don't even want to allude to it. I don't want to put any spoilers or anything, so I won't even allude to the point I was going to make.
Look, all I'm going to say that ESL did, I think it's mostly ESL decisions about this major, the changes that they did. Firstly, with the minors not having the grand final, having the Valve thing is the major play-in when they kicked out the last two teams from the group stage last time, and now we have like extra two teams on the minor. We'll have like live audience at the major qualifier. I think that's or the group stage. Maybe not for the major qualifier. For the group stage of the major, we'll have like a small audience. I think that's a cool thing that will make the major a bit different from just a normal event. I think since it's Poland, it's Katowice, it will probably be like it's a small audience, so it'll be full, and that'll be like a good atmosphere. And
I mean, it's a very small audience. It's maybe like maybe 50 people or something that can fit in that arena.
It must be a bit more than that.
Or was it?
But anyway.
Actually, no. Never mind. It's. I'm fucking up. It's obviously been that ICC thing or whatever it's called next to the arena. I'm mixing up locations.
Just like following these changes that they made, I feel like whatever change the SPUNJ obviously spoiled to us will also be good. Hopefully.
I didn't say anything. All right. I literally didn't say anything. But anyway, complexity probably not winning a game.
Not even a game.
I mean, yeah.
Surely against if they get Luminosity.
They're playing the opening round. Hold up, let me check.
They're not playing in that group though. They're in a group with Astralis, Cloud9, and Fnatic. So
I could maybe take Cloud9.
I guess that's the one. That's the one they could, but I
think this stacks up really well for Fnatic. Looking at these groups now, I want to see them do well.
Yeah,
I'm interested. I think the most interesting one to me, and we didn't. I think we talked a lot about in the last episode. Is Liquid. That's the most interesting one to me, to see how Stewie is integrated and how Adren has been able to address these issues as a coach, right? That's what I'll be keeping my eye on, because we know where Astralis is. It's about the contenders for Astralis, and the one that we had consistently throughout 2018 was Team Liquid. And with this roster change, the speculation that they obviously more firepower, no one's doubting that, but it's how that all works. So if they've made it work and they've solved that piece of the puzzle, even getting a victory over Astralis in a tournament like this, where we know that Astralis will probably not be putting in 100%, that is huge for Liquid. That is massive for them, regardless of the circumstances. So teams, I think Liquid has a lot to play for, Fnatic has a lot to play for, Ghost has a lot to play for, everybody else, not really.
Yeah,
I mean Complexity and Luminosity and Cloud9 have a lot to play for, but they won't do anything. So that's just like.
I mean, not even Cloud9, considering that this is just like whatever 2 weeks into that lineup.
Zelsis has a lot to play for.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough.
All.
Yeah, time to shine.
Russian.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, this tournament is just going to be a lot of fun for the viewers, just because of these new lineups. A lot of new things that we're going to see, especially in the Liquid camp. I have to agree. There have to be some like pretty substantial changes in the whole place, or not necessarily like a play style of the team, but changes in roles and people swapping around and things like that. So keep an eye on that for sure. That's one of those things I'm going to be focusing on. And kind of the same thing with FaZe, but we know what they're going to do. We know that they're going to play pretty much the same way with during kind of slotting in somewhere. So with them, yeah.
Will this event have more viewers than the European Minor if it overlaps? We don't know the times though.
It's LA, so that's a bad time zone.
Yeah.
So I don't.
I feel like even though we have like Astralis, Liquid, FaZe here, like more people will be watching the Minor.
It'd have to be some like crazy upset, right, to pull people in. You'd have to see something
it depends on the schedule, 100%. But it's a 2-day event, so it's probably going to be fairly packed. At least, especially on the first day, because I imagine the second day is just going to be semis and the final.
Yes.
So the first day is going to be just the whole groups. So that's what I'm thinking. It's just, I guess when we get to the final, we might get some pretty good numbers, but not entirely sure up until then. Or maybe when I guess Astralis and Fnatic meet in the groups, I think that's going to be pretty good. But I mean, compared to the Minor, they might as well, to be honest. Like, the Minors have not gone, like, even if these ones are just like a little bit more, I mean, the European one is going to be pretty competitive. Even besides that, I think the iBUYPOWER tournament will beat it, just because they have bigger teams.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. Well, let's be careful how I word this. Last time, the last set of minors, didn't the first minor, it wasn't actually featured in the client?
No.
I
think there's a little bit of a delay on that.
I thought it was.
Maybe it was the minors.
It might have just been them fucking up, because when I did the E-League minors, we were on in-game from all of it.
I feel like one of them wasn't featured for like the first minor or the first couple of days or something. And I just was curious to see how that might affect like the viewership, because this EU minor, like, it's a fucking legit event, right? Like this is gonna. I think this should bring in a very decent viewership if you're a fan of Counter-Strike. Like, obviously, if you're a fan of being patriotic, that's a little bit different. But if you're,
it's going to help that it's basically the first event. Like, there's nothing overlapping outside of that, right? You have the CIS Minor. Is that CIS Minor in the morning? It is, right?
Yeah.
First CIS, then Europe in the evening, right?
Yeah,
must be. Yeah. So, like, with that, it's going to help a lot, just because, like, they're basically going to have 3-4 days where, like, literally nothing else is happening. Like, within the last month, basically, we haven't really seen anything happening. So that's going to help them for sure, just because it's the first event.
All right. Any final thoughts on the iBUYPOWER Masters then, guys, before we move on, taking just a couple of questions that we've been getting in Twitch chat?
I'm fine.
Oh, we're all good. We're all good. All right, so I'm just going to... First one I'm going to take from this is possible candidates to replace Zeus as an in-game leader in Na'Vi.
I think the obvious one we talked about yesterday, not yesterday, but last time. No, Angel.
Oh, Angel, yes, we went through that. That's what.
Yeah, we did that in the last.
We were talking about that last time, and we had some conflicting thoughts about that.
Yeah, that was a good part. If you want to watch, probably just
go back and watch that.
Check the bot. It's definitely there. Yes. We went quite deep on that, and that we spoke about other players as well, like not just in-game leader replacements, like Edward replacements as well. Yeah, so we went quite in depth on that one. If you're interested.
Yes.
How to fix the Swedish scene? Bloody hell, that could be a whole podcast on its own.
Yeah, it's fixing itself.
I mean, it's kind of currently it's on the up. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have the question about Jane.
Potentially best player at this minor. The whole minor? Maybe not. Definitely CIS minor.
At the CIS minor, potentially, yeah.
CIS minor, 100%.
No,
I mean, that was also a player we mentioned. Didn't you mention him for Na'Vi?
Yeah.
I thought he would be a good primary AWPer for Na'Vi and let Simple be more of a hybrid role and let him do what he wants kind of thing. And then have either Angel or... I actually like the fact that Banks just said Blade there. If you had that much firepower around you, Blade's output as an in-game leader actually wasn't terrible sick. Considering. So like that isn't a horrible thought exercise by any means. But I think the CIS region as a whole, or at least if you just look towards Na'Vi and stuff, there's clear upgrades to be made. And considering the murmurs that went on at the end of last year, I would say something will happen within the first 6 months of this year.
When it comes to James, like he was super inconsistent. Like in the earlier months of 2018, he had some good events and then just dropped off massively when it came to like I think it was Katowice where he was just completely out of it, and then he just came back for like something like Start Series, I think, and they was just like kept fluctuating like this. But just looking at his stats from like the last few events, so he's basically had like a Chicago where he had like a 0.93 rating where they went out last after 2 fairly quick losses, so that's kind of, I guess, expected. But like the BGW, the Bucharest Gaming Week Invitational, obviously like smaller events, but he's been performing really well. So among this competition, like when you look at the CIS Minor, obviously, like he could just come there and just rule the whole thing. But yeah, we were touching on it a little bit.
Yes.
Someone said, why is Ents considered a good team nowadays? They just play Counter-Strike the way it's supposed to be played. End of.
Yeah, they do fundamental as well.
The boys.
Oh, yeah.
Grinding it up.
Yeah.
All right, let's close it all down, boys.
Do we know when we're doing the next episode? We do, actually.
Oh, we do, yeah.
It's 21st, Monday. 8 p.m.
For 6 days' time, we'll be back. 8 p.m. As always on this channel, make sure you drop a follow. The VODs will be up on HLTV as well. Thank you for all of us for joining us today. We'll be back after some of the minors. So, yeah, I guess we'll get to talk about the Asia and the American minors a lot when we come into Monday. See what we saw kind of happen, unfold at iBUYPOWER Masters. Have we got any telling signs there? Bloody hell, it's going to be an action-packed week. This is the way we want to start off the year.
Lots to talk about next time for sure.
All right, well, thank you for SPUNJ, Striker, and Professor for joining me. We'll be back next week on the 21st, Monday, 8 p.m. CET. We'll hopefully see you guys then.